Just wait for it to come up, really. It's what I'm doing. It says we're streaming.
Okay.
We're streaming.
We're sitting here quiet. People are watching. Are they actually back on, or are they?
Yeah. No, we are actually back on. This is a thing. We're back now. Apologize for the delay, everybody.
Yes,
we're
here.
back.
Some slight technical difficulties, but everything is back. We're good to go.
It's because I said misinformation, wasn't it? That's what it was.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's so funny. All right. Have a good trip at the gym, baby. All right. So we were eating crow, as I remember, about misinformation.
The point of what you were getting at. Right? You were talking about misinformation, disinformation.
Yes.
The point of what you were getting at is that last episode was not disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
We would never intentionally mislead anybody.
No.
Right? We did provide some information that was incorrect, and that's why we're here clearing that up. So, the Washington Board of Health put out a letter to clarify online misinformation about the January 12th State Board of Health public meeting. So, and I actually have this. Excuse me, I'll put it up on my phone so I can look at it too.
As you read, I will show the people what it is that we are reading.
So,
from the Washington State Board of Health, which is really interesting because it's one of those executive agencies that people aren't necessarily elected to, but may or may not be elected officials of some kind that get to determine and make alterations to state legislation.
Yeah, so the top half of this has to do with something called TAG, which is, we did not talk about that last week. I don't know about that. And the second part has to do with what we talked about. This says the board is not voting to change isolation or quarantine policies at its meeting on January 12th. The board is continuing a November 2021 rules hearing on the proposed rules change to Chapter 246-100 WAC, certain communicable and certain other diseases, which is the codes that we went over last episode. Right? Yeah, so that's what we went over the last time that we were here.
These are all the various WACs underneath that chapter of communicable and certain other diseases.
As published in WSR 212127, the board is proposing updating its rules to reflect current state law to align with and gross substitute House Bill 1551, Agenda Item 9, while related to rulemaking on Chapter 246-100, WAC is scoped only to the implementation of ESHB 1551 and does not include changes to isolation and quarantine policies, nor does it suggest enforcement be used to enforce any vaccination requirement. So if you click on ESHB, right, which is something State House Bill 1551, right?
Yep.
And gross substitute House Bill. That's what it is. Okay. And so this has to do with HIV something, right? It has a really to do with
bloodborne pathogens.
Yes.
But well, that's what it is now. And is it luckily
it was to combat the HIV stigmatism.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it was.
Essentially. Yeah. It's because AIDS and HIV stigmatism is so pervasive these days.
Yes.
Obviously, because we're all making fun of the AIDS babies every day. Obviously. Basically, we're going through, and I will say this for the Washington State Legislature, as you can see here, we have, or if you're not watching, you're just listening, in our legislature, every time they make changes to an existing bill, they have to go through and show you what it is that they're changing, what language. They have to line out the language,
yes,
and then also underline the new language. And so I spent some time last night going through this bill and got a really good handle on things. And essentially, here's an example of what they're changing, and you can use this logic throughout.
And if you want to see this, you can look at it on our YouTube. I just want to say that. Sorry.
Indeed. So here's an example. So they lined out this section that says, quote, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS, means the clinical, God, now I can't see him, syndrome of HIV-related illness as defined by the Board of Health by rule. And they line that out, and they are inserting the term blood-borne pathogen. So they are referring now in the state legislature under this chapter of the WAC, they are, or is this RC? This is WAC, not RCW.
This is an RCW, but it's part of larger, but it's to the change the WAC. Yes.
Yes. So
this RCW. Sorry.
So now, there any mention of HIV or AIDS throughout this portion of legislation is being replaced with, quote, bloodborne pathogen.
To their credit,
which
we
is
did
technically
mention-
correct, by the way.
To their credit, we did mention that it says HIV a lot. Like, we're like,
A
this has to do a
lot.
lot to do with HIV. Like, I don't know what the deal is
Right?
with that. We did talk about that a lot. So, to their credit, not the fact that
Yeah.
we weren't prejudging anything on that basis, but we did mention that they mentioned HIV a lot in that,
Which
in
was
that legislation.
really funny because the timing of that legislation was still around.
It was
the
weird.
fucking SARS
Yes.
pandemic,
Yes.
the original SARS outbreak. I guess. Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want to rehash that.
So, what I have here, right? The Board of Health letter says the meeting is not intended to expand the Washington Code that we read to coronavirus, right?
Yep.
I will own that we were hot on it. This does. I was swearing. You had your pause like, does swearing make you more correct? Blah 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 blah. blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
Paul's gonna come in and dad it up, bro. That's what he
Yeah.
does. He's my favorite.
but. And this is extremely important, right? And this, again, I will highlight, this does not take away that we were incorrect. We did say something was wrong. We misreported something. However, this does highlight that these codes can be expanded to COVID-19, that these laws do exist, right? That they exist because we read them, we showed them, the laws do exist, they just don't currently apply to COVID-19.
And I'm still not okay with the fact that if you have AIDS, you're subject to that shit in this state.
Right. Or any other disease or other communicable diseases. That's just the only one that was mentioned by name was
and
AIDS.
now they generalized it enough to say that it's not HIV/AIDS, and now it's just bloodborne pathogen.
Right.
What other bloodborne pathogens are there? There's a lot.
Right. And
So you are still. You're actually. It is a more broad law now, which again was our original contention from the beginning.
Yeah.
First, that it exists, and they are broadening it out to a wider audience, which they are still doing by changing the verbiage in this thing. And I can tell you they're probably not doing this on purpose to try to get at other people or something like that. What they're doing is they're trying to do this so they don't offend people.
Yes.
Right.
It's a PR move. This is totally a PR thing.
And so they're doing a PR thing, but they're unwillingly or unbeknownst to them, hopefully, they're broadening the scope of who this law can affect by trying to not hurt people's feelings.
Right.
And that's not okay.
And to clarify further, right, in Washington, WAC, the Washington Code 246-100, right? This is the one that we were just talking about. This is the infectious, what is it?
Infectious disease.
Communicable and certain other diseases, right?
Yeah.
In the definitions, which is 246-100-011, right? Number 7, subsection 7 in here, communicable diseases, right? Because we're just talking about the disease that this covers. Does not cover COVID-19 like we just talked about.
Yep.
Number 7, communicable diseases means an illness caused by an infectious agent which can be transmitted from one person, animal, or object to another person by direct or indirect means, including transmission via an intermediate host or vector, food, water, or air. So
it already exists.
and we're not fear-mongering, we're not fucking whatever, right? But this, as you just said, this seems to be overly broad legislation. And it seems as though, with everything that we read last week, that, and this is conjecture, okay? But this is what as somebody who could potentially fit into this category, this is why this matters so much, right? Is we went over last week, if you have a history of activities that the state or a health board worker would then think that it might be a danger for them to seek a court order for this to be done, because they talked about this. So you have to have a court order, you have to have a court order, unless they decide that they might be in danger, then they don't have to.
Yeah, it's kind of like probable cause in a way.
We talked about this.
Yep.
Yes, we went over that. It says that in the law. That's not conjecture. That's not question. It says that in the law. If they decide that you are, and we can go over that same verbiage again, but it exists.
I went to go pull it up. Tabs are so close, I clicked the X instead.
Fuck! And we can go over that again, but in the last episode, we read
went
that
over
verbiage. We had it there, right? So if they decide that it could cause harm to themselves or you, then they don't have to go and get a court order to notify you about it. They can seek an injunction from the courts in which they don't have to tell you about it, and you can't appeal. And you can't appeal until you are in the quarantine facility, and then they can have the police come to your house with the state board worker, with the Board of Health worker, and take you and put you in the quarantine facility, right? So I am not saying, we are not saying that is going to happen as soon as they do this, right? The point is, again, as somebody who could potentially fit into this category, and we'll talk about this and why I said that when we talk about the gun rights things, we'll talk about why somebody might say that about me in this state, okay? We'll talk about that later, but as somebody who could potentially fit into this category, that scares the fucking shit out of me. That the state could decide that because they know that I own something or I said something or I have a history of something, that they can decide it might be too dangerous for them to tell us. And so they're going to go and seek that injunction, and they're going to get the police and come to my house, and they're going to hem me up, and they're going to take me somewhere, and I can appeal that decision once I get there. That scares the fucking shit out of me.
As well it should.
And I don't, I'm sorry if I'm swearing. We've been trying to make I've been trying to make an active intent to not swear as much, but that scares the shit out of me.
Yep.
That the potential of that exists.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I find the most important about this legislation that we went over, is that potential exists. If they decide you fit into this category, that could happen to you. They can take you from your house, and they don't have to fucking ask questions, and you can appeal it when you're there.
Yep.
That scares the shit out of me.
Or maybe not.
So
Yeah.
I will apologize one last time for providing incorrect information. Obviously, that was not our intent. We would never do that. That cuts against the mission statement of this show. Not that we have one written out, but that cuts directly against our main mission, is to provide accurate information and objective information, even though objectivity is akin to whiteness. We strive to provide objective information so that you can make up your own mind and go from there. So these laws do exist.
Yes.
They do not currently cover COVID-19, but they do cover communicable diseases which fit that definition that we just went over,
Yeah.
which is a disease that could be passed from you or me, or from your animal to me, or some type of intermediate host,
Yep.
right, that could endanger other people. So
it's still kind of something to worry
just
about.
I guess I would just say just don't forget about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because as we just went over, also we learned that all it takes is a vote from the State Board of Health. Right? That's all that it takes, is a vote that we may or may not know about.
Yeah.
We may or may not be privy to, because even this was misinterpreted by somebody, and then the only time that it was released was through like gun pages and gun shop Instagrams and shit like that. So it's the same deal with this gun legislation that we're going to go over in a little bit. The only way that I heard about this was from gun shop Instagrams.
Yeah.
Why? Why are we not?
Because our bureaucratic betters,
Because they don't
Donovan, are
want you to
taking
know
it.
about it.
They're taking care of it for us,
Yes.
so that we don't have to.
And that's not a conspiracy that they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know about this. They don't.
They don't want you to know about it.
Good?
Yep, we're good.
They don't want to talk about this. They
I was
do
knocking
not
your
want
camera
to.
stand with my mic stand.
So
love
that's it, I think, as
Yeah.
far as the Washington State codes. And we can move on to...
Still not okay. Just not in the way
It's
we
not
put
good.
it before.
It's really not good.
It's
right?
really the detest and the anger over these laws being here and having them exist at all, much less having them still on the books and active today for anybody to take advantage of, is still the problem.
Right.
Whether or not they were voting to make COVID-19 a part of this or not is almost beyond the issue, because technically they were just going in there to change some verbiage. Done. Okay. This legislation still exists, and it still says that if you have some kind of communicable disease, that they decide that they can take advantage of this law and throw you into a fucking Australian quarantine camp, they
Right.
still can.
And right, the main point being, if you have leadership that chooses to implement this in a nefarious manner, that's when it becomes a real concern, right?
Yeah, so get it the fuck off the books.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Oh, that feels good. Okay.
So with that, I think
shake
we can
that
probably
off.
move on to our next segment, right? Which is going to be the idea of a national divorce, right?
Huge fan.
Like I said, there was Timcast IRL, You're Welcome, Cast Catchers, I guess is Cast Castle, which I guess it's still in the Timcast network, but
Yeah.
those are the only three that I can remember off the top of my head that I mentioned explicitly the idea of a national divorce. Right.
Okay.
So it was multiple shows on multiple different networks. There was definitely another one that was separate from the Timcast network that mentioned this concept as well, right?
So let me ask you this then, because in particular,
Yes.
the verbiage national divorce it's used particularly by certain people in certain areas
Yes.
on certain shows, right? Michael Malice is a big one of it. He might have been one of the original coiners of it, if I remember
He was
right.
talking to Dave Smith, too, and that's why
Dave
they
Smith, yeah. But as far as like media outlets, Tim Cass has been on this tilt for a minute. But I have seen the verbiage Civil War
Right.
carry into other spaces that would not have even mentioned that a year ago. And we're talking a few mainstream outlets. Ben Shapiro has been talking about it now. Fucking Commentary Magazine has at least mentioned the concept.
You've had different
things like
journalistic, different newspapers write articles
Yes.
that we are in a civil war now, or this is a cold civil war. Like that's happening. There are articles being written to that effect. And I think the reason national divorce sits a little bit better with me, even if it might be a utopian idea, right?
Well, I think
is national divorce leans to the idea that it could be an amicable separation that does not necessarily involve fighting,
War, yeah.
right? Active warfare between two parties, whereas civil war is a civil war. People are dying, people are shooting guns, the bombs are going off, people are dying.
Yeah.
But the idea of a national divorce could indicate, like I said, even as utopian as that idea might be, especially in America, it could indicate an amicable separation, one that doesn't involve large-scale warfare, in which states, counties, parts of the country separate into two or more different nations.
And I like where you're going with this, because that's kind of my tilt on what's the difference between a civil war and a national divorce. National divorce is more societal.
Yeah.
Civil war is more governmental. Obviously, they're both societal.
Yes.
The national divorce doesn't require the government. The national divorce doesn't require government involvement. That can be done on a completely societal level with low to mild violence.
Yeah.
Not necessarily full-blown. Governments are taking stances against other governments. State governments are not taking stances against the national government.
Especially,
it could be, I mean, you could see it in both forms, but that's the way I think of the difference between the standard civil war and national divorce is national divorce is more societal. We agree that we cannot make this relationship work anymore.
right.
You go do your thing, because we cannot. We have boiled the conversation down to the base foundational ethics and morals. We don't agree.
Right.
Our societal morals and our societal ethics do not align. They're contradictory to each other, so we cannot live together anymore.
Right.
You go hang out in California, we'll be over here.
And we've highlighted a few issues in the past where we've said something, posed questions very similar to that. Like abortion is one that's very consistent, and the idea of a centralized government versus one that's more focused on on individual liberties. We've talked about these concepts that become very large, and I know for certain I have asked and said I don't know how you parse that out. I don't know. And we always use abortion example because it's so pivotal, when you have one group that it's considered something murder and another group that considers it a civil right. I don't know how you parse that out. I don't know how you resolve that issue if what one person considers murder you believe to be a civil right,
Yeah.
I don't know how you solve that. I don't, and that's not.
I don't think you can, if you asked me.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't know, and so when you have one federal government that has laws that cover both of those parties, it seems like it is a near futile venture to create and pass a law in which both parties will feel fully satisfied with,
And there's something that's going to come up later when we talk about the gun laws that'll also kind of dovetail into this.
Thank you.
With the concept of state laws and
Gun
federal
laws is a
laws and
good
stuff
one.
like that coming in. But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what you do about it, obviously, because it's distressing to a certain point. But I don't know. I'm kind of a fan myself of the concept of a national divorce. I don't think it's possible. Federal government wouldn't allow it to be possible. We'll put it that way.
Amicably, or you think at all?
I don't see a situation in which something we identify as a national divorce does not divulge into civil war. We'll just put it that way.
Well, and that's
because the
national
tax
divorce doesn't necessarily preclude a civil war from it. You know, I think that, and that's why I say I think a national war just includes the possibility that there isn't, but it doesn't preclude the idea that, or exclude the idea that there could be one, but it opens the door to the idea that maybe there won't be, because it doesn't take. To your
I think
point
all
earlier,
you need to do is add the idea that nuclear weapons exist, and the idea of a totally amicable, peaceful divorce goes away.
And that's why I said earlier, it may very well be a utopian idea, you know, and that's one of the much more complicated issues, you know. Right. It can seem very simple when you first start to talk about it as first thing, like, yeah, fuck it, you know, different states and commerce and blah, 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 and as long as they figure out the trade, then what does it really matter, you know? But it's not
Everybody
quite,
forgets those damn missiles.
it gets very complicated. So,
Now, who do you think in your...
Oh, I was going to say, sorry,
go
I
ahead.
got to interrupt real quick. So I was going to say, to your point earlier about the federal government's involvement, right? This doesn't even require, the idea of secession doesn't even require and excludes the executive branch. It's a decision of the states, right?
Yeah.
If 2/3 of the states, I believe it is, decide that X amount of states are going to leave, then they can go.
Yeah. The old 2/3.
Yeah, so it doesn't even require the federal government, you know, only the states at that point. So,
Yes, which I believe constitutionally is the only way at which it can be okay.
right.
Because the federal government only exists because the states decide to give it power.
Right.
So if the states have a thing going on, the federal government can go fuck itself and wait in the corner. Abraham Lincoln is sorry. It's not going to work out this time. That's an interesting thing.
Yes.
That is an interesting thing because it would be just as bad today. It would be just as unconstitutional today. But there's not exactly slavery to be fighting for.
No,
right?
I think
which was something that really helped, I think, the populace be okay with something like that. You know, you had a social issue there that people can get behind and say, no, this is bad, this is wrong, we're going to stop this. What, other than, like, I don't know, maybe authoritarianism nowadays, could you find something else that you could convince the populace that would be able to back something like a war like that? Like, I don't know if I could.
I don't know about a singular issue. You know,
Right.
I think that you would probably an amalgamation of issues that you put under the umbrella of something like civil rights, you know, and that's what I was talking earlier about. Like, if you're considering like abortion's a civil right, and
what we define as a civil right.
if you're considering healthcare a civil right, you know, and like things like that, that all of these are now encompassed, and like these are civil rights, and if they're not included in this, then we don't have a civil country, and we don't whatever. You know, there's going to be a whole slew of people that maybe even are supporters of those things, of Medicare for all and of abortion, that don't think that they're civil rights and don't think they need to be added to the Bill of Rights, you know, as an amendment.
Well, and that I was just going to say, do you think that's something that maybe speaks to the lack of like belief truly behind these unconstitutional? I don't know what you call it, programs. Like the universal health care, like the concept of universal health care is unconstitutional essentially. But you could easily go for an amendment to change that to allow it to be. Kind of like the, God, I don't know why I'm drawing all these blanks right now, but somebody proposes something that is so foundationally different, it would require a constitutional amendment. But nobody pushing that kind of legislation is talking about trying to get a constitutional amendment, whether it be like filibuster reform, whether it be voting rights reform, whether it be universal health care, whatever you're going to change, whatever you're going to redefine as a civil right, something you want to ensconce as a human right. Bernie's not Australian. That was weird. But yeah, Bernie's always talking about this is a human right. Healthcare should be a human right. I don't see Bernie advocating an amendment to the Constitution to state that thusly.
I think that's because you run into the same barrier that you do with secession. It requires 2/3 ratification, and you're not going to get 2/3 of the states on board with saying that abortion is a civil right.
If you truly believe that, though,
that forces. I understand that they truly believe that.
If they
but
do.
if you even if you do, if you know for a fact you have to get 2/3 of the states, that's not like we can maybe convince some Republican senators.
Yeah,
you have
right.
to convince the state legislatures of Republican states like Texas, who just passed a 6-week abortion ban. You're not going to convince Texas to vote in favor of making abortion an amendment, of making that. So
I
if
guess
you
my
you
point
know for a
being-
fact that it's never going to happen. There's no point in proposing it.
I would say this, though. If you are, I guess my point being, I don't disagree with you at all, obviously, because there's the reality of the game, right? If you're an elected politician, you're not going to try to get something on the House floor that's going to die an abysmal failure right off the jump because nobody else is going to be on board because you can't even convince your local federal representation that this is a good idea. You need to go back to your states and push this shit at the state houses. You don't believe it enough. I guess I want to backtrack. My point being, if Bernie Sanders doesn't believe, even if he believes he can't get it done, he's an elected official put there to represent the viewpoints of his state. He should die on that hill and push for it every single day.
If that's what they want. You
illustrating
wait,
the reason they don't want it.
Wait. Because you just contradicted yourself.
Did I?
You're saying that Bernie believes that if Bernie believes, we're using him as an example and a made-up thing, right?
Yeah.
If Bernie believes that abortion needs to be an amendment, that it's a civil right, right? So that's what he believes. You are then saying he's there to represent his constituents. If his constituents do not want that to be an amendment, then if he were to propose it to be an amendment, he's then acting on behalf of himself and not his constituents.
It shouldn't be a thing. So if his constituency, his state is pushing for that, right? He's there to do that job. He's pushing for it as a senator or even as a representative, whatever. Either way, you're pushing for that, even if you know it's not possible to get the votes for it. If your constituents believe that and you're there to represent them, you should die on the hill of fighting for that every single day. But none of these people do.
I think that's too. It's too reductionist. I think because if you think about it,
is that too utopian?
If you think about if you're Bernie Sanders, right?
Yeah.
You then face the decision of legitimately, right, to the same point of reduction that you're presenting it. I then have the choice to tell my constituents, listen, I can work on something that's happening right now, or I continue to hammer that this needs to be an amendment, and that's what my issue can be. Or I can address these other things that we might actually get done. What do you think they're going to want?
And which is ultimately how they abolish slavery, was choosing to say I can't get the votes for this. I can't get the votes for this. Going at it at a different tack to get something that you may not necessarily, you may have advocated for 20 years at the bottom of your soul, but never tried to get it passed in a way or whatever until the timing is right, until the angle is right, until you can find a way to get a small W instead of a full capital W.
Well, and I think to your point earlier, there isn't anything to the same level as slavery that enough people are in agreement on. I think obviously the vast majority of people agreed that black people were the same as white people.
So,
or that they at least shouldn't be slaves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So to prevent us from going too far afield here, because I realize how far off into right
You're
field
really
we
good
are,
at
right?
that.
I am. When it comes to the concept of a national divorce, the 2/3 majority issue is a problem because you're not going to let people leave the union without 2/3 majority. You're not going to allow a change like that.
And my counter to that would be, I think you could convince 2/3 of the states for different reasons that a national divorce is the right thing to do.
But not the one.
No, not
And
one.
that's
for
where we
different
were.
reasons.
Yeah.
If you present the idea of a national divorce and you look at the Democrats at one group and you say for this reason for abortion, and then look at part of the Republicans and you say for the reason of gun rights, and then look at these people and say for the reason of voting rights, and you look at these people and say for the reason of this. You could convince them all to be in favor of a national divorce for a different reason, but they're all going to vote for it.
Yeah. So during the Lincoln times, you had something like slavery.
Right.
Here, our problems are so many and so different that you're never going to be able to get 2/3 majority to do that on a single issue.
Correct. Yeah, for a singular issue. And I think that, and this is again to your point, because of that, it is near impossible to have an amicable divorce because the clear line that existed between North and South then will be this corner, this part in the middle, this part up here, and then also it stretches over to the Pacific Northwest. So somehow the West Coast and the East Coast are all one country, but you have all this shit in the middle that's maybe one or two other places. And so
I will say
the fighting is going to happen when they're drawing those lines out, because people who live in a state are not going to be told by someone on the West Coast, oh, also you belong to us now. They're going to say, oh, you can suck my dick. No, I don't. I belong to this state that actually is going to represent my views instead of you pieces of shit.
Yep.
So, and that's where I think you would even have states like Western Washington, Eastern Washington that themselves are going to split, where the East half is going to say, if this is what we're doing, then let's do it here too, because fuck you guys. You also don't represent our views.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with Idaho and Montana and shit, and you guys
Greater Idaho, baby.
That's what I'm saying. You guys can keep the Western half, and we'll make Idaho a sliver instead of a weird L that it is, you know?
I will say, at
the
least
chubby L.
The chubby, because it is a chubby L.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird.
Yeah, in the middle, it's all exactly.
You could drive across it in fucking 50 minutes or 4 hours.
Yeah.
So, I will say, at least if something like that were to happen and people start redrawing lines, we're going to be in one of the largest states or nations controlled by the opposition.
Might need more ammo. Definitely
because of
need
where
more
we're
ammo.
at. Might need more ammo.
There's no
So
doubt about that.
I like to
We'll
talk,
be involved in a fucking mass exodus is what we'll be involved in.
Yes.
I'm absolutely not staying.
I
If
will
the states
say-
are splitting, I'm absolutely not staying here.
I am
I'll
not
go
going
and
here.
steal someone else's house. I don't give a shit. There's going to be plenty of empty houses in other states because people who, whatever, got all blued up
Yep.
and then went to Texas are going to have to leave because they're going to die if they stay there because someone else is going to take their shit. So, yeah, I don't. You guarantee if there's going to be some type of split, all those hardcore Texans are kicking all those California motherfuckers out. They're keeping Joe Rogan and a couple of the choice few, kicking everybody else out.
You know, I kind of have like a generalized concept to prevent a divorce or a civil war if you really wanted to.
Hang on to that.
Go ahead.
Maybe we'll make that the end segment because we still
Because it's
gotta
ridiculous.
Maybe we'll
So,
make
yes.
that the extra segment or something like that, and
That's
we'll
fine.
pontificate on this whole idea.
Oh, it'll
more.
take 30 seconds.
So,
It's a one-liner that we're going to use to move on. So if we're
well,
not ready to
what
move
you got
on,
then?
all you got to do is just declare anarchy, get rid of all the government. People will figure out how to live with their neighbors. Done. Crisis averted.
I love it.
But yeah, when we talked about national divorce as a subject, I don't know what we had fully conceptualized other than the fact that we should probably talk about what it is, what other people are talking about.
Yes.
There's really nothing more to talk about other than that, I think. It's just kind of...
Well, so now what we're going to get into is kind of some of the bigger issues that might lead to that. Right?
Ooh.
The reasons that people are talking about that. Okay. And so this is another piece that I have written here. Since the founding, the separation of states from federal government as well as from each other has been and acted as a sliding scale of liberty available to all Americans. As more things are nationalized, including things like elections, constitutionally designated to the states, the list, concern, and conversations grow, right?
Yep.
The list of things, the list of reasons, okay? So some of the reasons that we have here, some of the big things that we're going to go over. The first one I have is some new gun laws that have been proposed in Washington State, right?
Yeah, these are big.
So we have 4 that are here, and I'll kind of I'm going to talk about them for a second and talk about an idea, and then we'll dive into these laws. So one of them is SB 5217, which is the assault weapons ban.
Concerning assault weapons.
Concerning assault weapons. Another one is SB 5078.
Yep.
Which is the magazine capacity, which I think they amended to 12. I think they amended it to 12 rounds, but it could still be 10. It's either 10 or 12. I don't remember off the top of my head. I thought I saw somewhere that it was amended to 12.
I will check the most updated form of this legislation, the substitute bill.
Another one is SB 5568, which is a state preemption, which is a little bit more complicated, so we'll get into that one at the end.
Yeah, and that one I really was interested to talk about,
Yes.
too. I think I
And
mentioned that
then
earlier.
HB 1705, which is regarding the home manufacturer of firearms.
Yep.
Right? So, all these things were proposed. One of them was rehashed. I think it's the assault weapons ban and the magazine capacity ban actually were rehashed and they were reintroduced. So there was a certain public comment period that was able to be skirted initially. And so now it's in the reintroductory phase. All these things are being proposed again. Something that I've really struggled with this week, right, is whether or not I should leave these comments. I hardly recognize, I struggle to recognize legitimacy of these governments anymore, right? I really struggle with it.
That's a good point.
Personally and deeply hold that all gun laws are unconstitutional. So I will proudly proclaim that regardless of the outcome of these votes, I'm going to continue to do whatever the fuck I want in regards to firearms because this is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
I don't care that, and I said this in some of the things that I wrote to them, I don't care that the 6th Circuit Court or the 8th Circuit Court just decided that the magazine capacity ban is fine. That is obviously a horribly biased fucking court that can't
read the Constitution.
So I don't recognize that. I don't recognize it. The same way that I don't recognize the state's authority to decide when you've received an adequate education. I don't for all these things. I don't recognize the state's ability to do these things. So I'm going to continue to do what I want anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're going to live constitutionally.
So I struggled to decide whether or not I was going to write comments anyway. Right. So I decided after 3 or 4 days of really hard thinking, I had finished the comments up already. And so I wrote them in. Right. So I sent them in because I'm like, at least I did the thing that I was supposed to do. You can do more. I could call them. I could email my representatives individually. I can do these things.
Yeah. But how much wasted effort?
I believe very deeply that they don't care. They don't. Yeah. They don't care about this issue, right? I wrote to Drew Hansen. I got that email from him before when he's like, I don't think this is going to pass anyway, but, it matters and people care about it and Gabby Giffords, and so we're going to do it. This whole thing with Gabby Giffords and magazine reloading times, this is a tired fucking narrative.
So stupid.
If you think that some fucking police officer who trains less than I do is going to be able to reload quicker than I do, you got me fucked up. Word. So I'm just not going to have it. It's a ridiculous conversation. It's a ridiculous thing to hear from somebody who's probably never shot a gun. Maybe they own a gun. They definitely don't train with guns. It's like we do. So I don't want to hear it. I really started to lose it this week. I will finish this concept up first and then we'll go on to it. Right. So I sent in my comments and only on one of them did I ask for a response to my comments, right? And then for the rest of them, and that was just on accident, that's the default, is to ask for a response. For all the rest of them, I unchecked it because I don't fucking want to hear from these people. They don't fucking care anyway. I'm going to get another email just like I did from Drew Hansen.
Your fucking form letter is going to piss me off more.
So the email that I got from Tara Simmons, who was the only representative that wrote me back, right?
She was the one that your mom was pushing for, right?
Yes. Okay. And this is, I'll read what I said, right? I am once again asking you to vote against this illogical and unconstitutional bill. The vast majority of shootings and mass shootings alike are done with handguns and not assault-style rifles, in quotations. When semi-automatic rifles are used in less than 1% of gun crimes, how will banning them help curb gun crime? Ignorance is not a good enough excuse to carve away the constitutional rights of your constituents. This will only affect law-abiding citizens who have the right to possess these weapons. Additionally, I fear that if this law is put into place, lack of results in lowering gun crimes is what I'm saying. The lack of results will be used as evidence that this law did not go far enough. There will be no impact on gun violence. Last year, the Rand Corporation reviewed scientific research on gun violence published between 1995 and 2018. They found no studies that showed any reasonable way that public policy implementing magazine bans or semi-auto rifle bans had any impact on violent crimes. The response that I received from Tara Simmons: Hello, Donovan. Thank you so much for reaching out, and I will take your concerns into consideration. All my best, Tara. They don't give a fuck, right?
Yep.
She doesn't give a fuck. No. She don't, and that's, you could say I'm assuming, right? Because she said I will take this into consideration. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Your name is on some of these bills for home manufacturing of firearms. This woman in particular, right? She has a criminal history. Lonesome Lenny! Lenny's here! Lenny is here.
Lenny's my favorite.
Lenny, make sure you watch the whole show. Make sure you go back. I don't mean like watch. I mean like because he was here when we talked about the codes last week, and so we had to eat crow a little bit. Oh yes. So make sure you go back to the beginning because we corrected ourselves a little bit. So just so you know that we're legitimate, we're willing to own when we make mistakes. Go back and watch the whole show later. Anyway, Tara Simmons, right? I don't remember exactly what her deal was, but she had a criminal history and was fighting to help expunge people's criminal histories because she came back from that and became a lawyer. And now she's doing all this shit.
It's like my pillow guy.
I can't. Yeah. I just can't. You don't you don't give a shit about this, you know? And this is what I was talking about earlier in the pre-show. I respect if you don't care, that's fine. If you don't care about this, if you don't understand why this matters, if you don't understand why having an AR matters, if you don't understand why the Second Amendment matters, if you don't understand, that's fine. I accept that. If that is the case, then shut the fuck up. You don't belong in this conversation. You don't belong here. This conversation, this topic is too intrinsic, too ingrained in people's lives and their very foundational rights for an uneducated person to be deciding how this is going to be done. I'm past it. I am past it with issues like this, where this is a much deeper topic that maybe we can get into afterwards. I struggle on a daily basis that people's votes all matter the same in things like this. You know, if you don't know what you're talking about, you shouldn't decide whether or not I get to keep my constitutional rights that you don't care about. That's fine if you don't care. It's fine if you don't understand. If that's the case, then shut the fuck up. I just can't. I cannot with it. And that's why when I wrote in about, we can go over all the comments because I prepared everything that I could, but you can only do 1,000 characters in the public comments. So I had to limit myself.
Can I
right?
just say
Isn't
super
that weird?
fucked up.
Isn't that weird?
1,000 characters?
Yes.
That's 4 tweets. That's 4 tweets.
So here's actually the rest of what I was going to write for assault weapons, because I could only write as much as I could. In the second half, I just took a piece from some fucking gun propaganda website and just took some statistics and slapped it at the end because I didn't have anything else that could fit, right? Yeah. So here's the second half, or the second part. We have seen authoritarian governments around the globe flex their muscles publicly during the COVID pandemic. This is not the time to be stripping the American public of their only recourse for defense against their own government should it display the same inclinations as the CCP or the Australian government. And this is a quote. In my opinion, powder and artillery are the most efficacious, sure, and infallibly conciliatory measure we can adopt. That is from John Adams. Since the founding, our countrymen have held this truth to be self-evident, that all men have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Second Amendment is intrinsic in that pursuit. This legislative body, nor any before or after it, have the power to remove or hinder my constitutionally held rights. These bills are akin to the British attempts to disarm the people at Lexington and Concord. Please vote no on this bill.
And she don't care about that.
She doesn't give a fuck.
That has no concept of what you just said. Really? She goes, this individual is an extremist. It's a domestic extremist. Obviously, he's quoting things like John Adams.
A
founder.
The second president of the United States.
Racist. Probably had slaves.
Never owned a slave in his whole life.
Fuck. Okay, they can't use that one.
His cousin,
I'm sure they'll find something.
Samuel Adams was once gifted a slave as a wedding present and immediately set her free. Immediately set this woman free.
Fucking thug. Especially for that time, dude. Ostracized. I mean, I think we talked about that in the last show, like his relationship with his wife and how ahead of his time were they? I'm sure, because he never really got into people like giving him like a bunch of shade, a bunch of shit for like, communicating with his wife and doing all that, right?
No.
They never really got into that.
She was too smart. She made too much sense.
Yeah. They couldn't say no.
No.
To that point.
You can't deny it.
Yeah. I can't deny it.
No.
I'm a fucking John Adams.
So I just struggle. I did it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? I did it anyway.
Because what else are you going to do?
So
you have no other recourse other than hitting, writing it out and click send.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
So,
which is sad.
The first thing they have here are questions like, why do these matter? We're going over some of these things right now, right? Yeah. And we talk about them all the time. So we're going to just kind of go over slavery was sanctioned in the Bible. Word.
I'm not a religious individual.
Not a Bible man.
I'm going to take your word for it, Larry. Also probably why I'm an atheist.
You love calling him Larry.
Lenny, I did.
It's because we got Larry. It's because Larry's so deep in the show.
It's too similar.
Yes.
Yes. You got this.
Guns, culture, and law. It's that. Okay. So one of the. Sorry, I had to parse my own writing here, right? So one of the issues when we talk about gun laws, right? Gun legislation is that. Come on, man. Come on, man. One of the issues with gun laws and culture is that it's a complicated issue, and people who don't care about guns don't want to have a complicated conversation about guns, because to them it's a very cut and dry issue, which I kind of addressed earlier, that like if you don't understand and appreciate the nuance of the conversation, and I'm not trying to be all fucking smart or whatever, but if you don't understand the complexity of the conversation, then that's fine, but you shouldn't be involved in that conversation, because it isn't cut and dry. It isn't why do you need guns, because there is a myriad of reasons in which I would use a myriad of different firearms. And so the complexity of the conversation itself leads to it being boiled down to that simplistic view of it, which it does a damage to the topic itself. So I'll go over some of the comments that I wrote for these things, and I think that will lead us down this path, right? So this is the comments that I wrote for the magazine ban. And
which is 17 rounds, by the way.
17 rounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just pulled it up.
Excellent.
Large capacity magazines means an ammunition feeding device with the capacity of accepting more than 17 rounds of ammunition.
Well, it got me on that one, because when I wrote it into him last time, 17 was the number that I used, because 17 is a very standard number for like Glock 17s and shit like that. Glock 19, 17 rounds is very standard.
Yeah. And that might be a good sign, because I've seen a lot of things on the social medias about people still talking about 12 rounds.
Yes.
And so that might be somewhat of a good sign. If we're going to infringe, we're going to infringe less. Because I mean, we're going to make sure Glock folks can still have a magazine.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
But my AR came stock with a 30-round magazine.
Yeah, it's still fucking ridiculous. But
Lee says, I'm always glad to discuss gun issues. The gun lobby and the NRA have too much influence in the political system. 1,000%. And
Yep,
if you
not
ask
wrong.
me, the NRA is a useless organization. They no longer do even what they were intended to do. I don't think they represent the ideals of modern gun owners, or even...
no.
No, so
They're just a bunch of corporate shills.
I'm here for it. Yeah, they are a political influencing organization. That is all that they are now. They don't protect anybody. They don't help anybody. They don't do anything. You know,
I once gave money to them, but no longer.
it's just a qualification that you can have when you're a trainer. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a membership you could be.
Or if you're a politician, you can get an endorsement.
Yeah. So this is what I wrote for the magazine ban. I wrote 10 rounds in here. This is what I get. I don't. This doesn't. It matters that I should have had the accurate number in my public comments. However, it doesn't matter to me personally, because I find this number to be arbitrary and ridiculous on its face. So, again, I am once again asking you to vote against this bill. I understand the recent ruling by the circuit courts. However, I believe the ruling in the Ninth Circuit to be incorrect and tainted by biased judges who lack an understanding of firearms and firearms training. Those willing to break the law to harm... And those willing to break the law to harm are also likely willing to break the law to acquire and use a large capacity magazine. For what reason should me or my family be put in a disadvantaged position for self-defense because we hope that potential mass shooters will follow the law? The logic does not hold. The vast majority of handguns purchased for home and self-defense come standard with magazines of more than 10 rounds. This would make a magazine of more than 10 rounds the standard, not high capacity. The logic does not hold. Forcing all gun owners to purchase new magazines is also an increast challenge to marginalized communities and populations already struggling to make ends
I
meet.
see what
Hold
you did
my
there.
So,
equity up the ass,
hold
bitch.
my fucking dick. Yeah, so.
Now, you know what's really funny about this legislation, too, is that if the, here, I'll just read it. Fuck. The ammunition feeding device that has been permanently altered so that that cannot accommodate more than 17 rounds of ammunition obviously is not subject to this legislation. A 22 caliber tube ammunition feeding device doesn't have to require, you can have over 17.
Okay.
So basically,
and a tubular magazine that is contained in a lever action
rifle.
firearm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a lever action
that like
firearm
breaks
that
at the top or something like that,
yeah,
or
usually
injects in the side,
different ways,
Yep.
and you load
an old Henry boy or some shit like that.
Word.
Yeah,
right. And I don't know
Which are still
any of
pretty
those
common.
that you can do more than 17. Maybe
That
18.
just
I don't
seemed
know.
like a lot.
Maybe for the little 22s, maybe.
Maybe the 22s. Well, I know that like,
But still, dude, I will wreck you with the 22 still. Okay, if I'm gonna be a bad guy. And I'm going to go, if the only thing I can get is a 22 rifle, and I feel like the only way I can commit this crime is with a magazine of over 17, I'd be okay with the 22. Like, as a criminal, you're not going to stop criminals from committing the crimes they're doing by by giving them a law to stand in their way.
Well, and
We'll just say that.
to your point, more people die of 22 than any other caliber in the country.
This is very true.
And that's largely because you can get shot with the 22 and think that you're fine and walk away and have weird internal bleeding and shit. 22s bounce around super weird inside of your body.
Yep.
So they can cut up all kinds of stuff and you can die later and not know. So 22 statistically is the most lethal caliber in the United States. I don't know if that's... Yeah, statistically. Lenny says, I'm in Massachusetts. The gun laws are fairly still getting a permit. However, gun shops are getting around the permit issue by having free firearms classes. In Washington...
I know a guy who got an FFL in Massachusetts.
I think it's I don't want to say simple, but it's more time consuming than anything else from my understanding. But in regards to gun laws here, for concealed carry, you just apply for the permit, do the fingerprinting and stuff like that. But for like ARs, we talked about this in the past. For a while, it was the assassin's firearm of choice. That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
The what's
too.
his name? Not the BTK killer, Night Stalker. Night Stalker killed the one too.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Really?
yes.
Night
So
Stalker.
for concealed carry, you just apply for the permit and get fingerprinted. But for an AR, for a semi-automatic rifle, there's a class that you have to take. There are, like Lenny said, a lot of free ones that you can take. That's why mine was online. It took like 5 minutes. Print out the certificate. You have to take it in there. So it's very similar. I hear you.
Legislation just can't stop somebody that's going to do
find
it.
this. I also find these to be unconstitutional. It doesn't. We've gone over. I did an entire video once, Lenny. Actually, the legislation here is called I-1639, or it was before it was a bill.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the law is called, but it's regularly colloquially referred to as I-1639, and I did a whole breakdown of it and exactly why it didn't make any sense. Colin and I stood here, we voted for it, we told people to vote for it, and then I bought an AR, and I was like, wait, this doesn't actually make any fucking sense at all. So we did a whole video on it. Very interesting.
Okay. I-1639.
Yes.
The laws passed in that initiative were then subject, or they are held within Chapter 9.41 of the RCW.
Okay. There it is. So
Legislation and shit.
these are the comments that I made for homemade firearms, right?
Ghost guns.
Yep. So, homemade firearms. I'm asking you to vote no on this bill, and I believe if a deep understanding of firearms and the surrounding culture was more prevalent, my fellow citizens would feel the same. Home manufacturing of firearms is among the most equitable entrances to the world of firearms ownership. They can be made relatively expensively or frugally. The pieces can be purchased over time to fit one's budget or all at once if more expedient means of self-defense is required. And the truest and oldest, and this is why I said I might fit into that category earlier when we're talking about the Washington codes. In the truest and oldest sense of the Second Amendment, it is in the best interest of the responsible citizenry to possess means of defense that the potentially tyrannical government does not know about.
Oops.
Home production of firearms and ammunition actively allows people around the globe to maintain recourse for defense from their potentially tyrannical and already overreaching government.
Yeah, you know, you're on a list.
So,
It's fine.
Definitely.
They just have my address. It's not a big deal.
So...
Now, I want to read you something from this piece of legislation,
Yes.
Section 1, because it's very intriguing, because it explains a little bit about their forethought behind this. When talking about ghost guns, right?
Yeah, I had a question about this I wasn't able to figure out.
The legislature finds that ghost guns are untraceable and unregulated firearms that lack a unique serial number that would allow them to be traced by specific manufacturer, dealer, and purchaser. The absence of a serial number on a ghost gun undermines the ability of law enforcement to identify individuals who have used such guns in the commission of a crime. Such incentives to use the use of ghost guns in criminal acts make it easier for criminals to evade detection and employ lethal force and endangers public safety. So, they're saying that ghost guns are bad because because they have no ability to track and trace a ghost gun.
Yes.
But they are so good at tracking and tracing manufactured weapons,
Stolen firearms.
stolen firearms. They're really good at tracing those because they have serial numbers on them, right? So the difference here, they're upset about ghost guns because they don't want people like you and me making guns in our house because they cannot track them. That's period, full stop. That's the only reason they don't like it, because they don't know that we have them.
Don't know who has it.
That's right.
Yes.
They don't know who has them.
And they use a
I wish I had a ghost gun right now.
They use a statistic later in this
Mm-hmm.
about how many crimes were committed with ghost guns, right? And I was not able to clarify this statistic, right? Because my interpretation of this statistic, the last time that I heard it, was that, so was it about...
This is it right here. Okay, so nationwide, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives reported that about 10,000 ghost guns were recovered in 2019. Between 2016 and 2020, more than 23,000 unserialized firearms were recovered by law enforcement from potential crime scenes, including 325 homicide or attempted homicide crime scenes.
So, and I really, maybe we can try and look it up here because I don't know where they got that, right? The last time I heard this statistic, the understanding I was given was that these were not ghost guns. They were guns that were not owned. So that includes stolen firearms, right? It includes guns that have serial numbers but are not owned. They're stolen firearms.
Okay, so the sentence before this, right? The legislature further finds that proliferation of ghost guns, ghost gun kits, and untraceable, unfinished frames and receivers threaten public safety. So, when they are looking at that statistic, they're going ahead and saying that, like, what you would think of as a ghost gun kit, and an untraceable, unfinished frame and receiver all add into that statistic. So we're talking about people that are doing what?
No. Those are two different things.
They're very different things. But
the first part, I'm saying that doesn't say that statistic involves those things. It just says that it finds those things that they threaten public safety. And then nationwide, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Explosives reported that about. So it doesn't say that those things are involved in those crimes.
But in the nature of how this is written, it's the second sentence in the paragraph. Just
Does
so
that
you guys could see it.
Statistic involve gun where the serial number was removed? That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Is that it's not just guns there, because what they're talking about, right, in that first sentence, is they're saying ghost guns, which would the only type of ghost gun that I could maybe even consider giving that a legitimate qualification would be a 3D printed firearm, which no one knows where it came from. It was designed by some fucking guy. You printed out a PLA in your house. No one could ever find out where that could possibly go.
Yeah, don't use the PLA nomenclature, bro. I mean, we already know what you're doing now.
Saying, so the second one, ghost gun kits, right? That means somebody else made a kit for you. So you're talking about P80 firearms, which is a pistol frame, the bottom part. We've talked,
I think I've seen this online.
We've talked about them before. We've showed them before. It says, this is clear. It's clear. Everyone can see this. I'm going to take this apart so we can look at it.
Wink.
This bottom part here, right? You can get one of these that's not finished, so these holes are not drilled in it, right? This, you can get something called a P80 that looks just like this without the light on it, and then you finish it out yourself, right? That's a ghost gun kit.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they're calling a ghost gun kit.
All you got to do is mill a couple things and you're good to go.
Drill a couple holes out. That's what they're calling a kit, right? There's also, you can buy some jigs and stuff like that for like AR lowers, and then you can do those with like a hand router, you know, so they sell kits for that as well. The third part they're talking about, the untraceable, unfinished frames and receivers. It would also refer to these kits if you buy, or just this if you don't buy a kit, if you buy just the bottom, or the low receiver that we've talked about before for an AR, that you mill out yourself that I just talked about, right? They are not talking about, and that's why this concerns me, they're not talking about guns that are stolen and then used or recovered, right? Yeah. That's my interpretation of this statistic, is when that number was given, the person said, the ATF representative said, unregistered firearms. Unregistered. That does not mean ghost guns. That does not mean printed. That does not mean manufactured at home. That means those plus guns that were stolen and then kept in this house or used. That is an enormous fucking difference.
Huge difference.
That's why. So we got to find out that statistic actually, because that's my understanding of it. Is the person said untraceable or unregistered firearms, which is not the same thing as a home finished firearm.
No, and up until very, very recently, has a home made firearm or a home finished firearm even really become a thing? It's only in the last
10 years.
10 years maybe. And so Well, yeah. When was it? Is 2019 to 20? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna do some digging here real quick. See what I can find. Just cursory glance.
Because I don't believe that.
Right.
I do not believe that. I believe that those stats are fuzzy. That's what I'm saying. That is what I am saying. You're talking about 23,000 3D printed guns, 80% firearms taken in the last, was that 4 years?
Yeah.
4 years?
Between 2016 and 2020, more than 23,000 unserialized firearms were recovered.
And the only way that those things can be completely untraceable, right, is if you went into a gun store, some store that sold an 80% kit that you bought with cash and then didn't keep it at all. But even in this state, when you buy an 80% lower shit like that, if you're going to buy it online, you bought it with a credit card. Yeah. There is some trace of that purchase.
Yep.
So unless you bought it in cash in a store, that's the only way that those kits are untraceable. If you bought them online, which the vast majority are bought online, you can get them in a store. You 1,000% can buy them in a store, right? The 80%, the unfinished lowers and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. The vast majority are bought online with fucking credit cards.
Unserialized. I'm just trying to figure out, because I got DuckDuckGo it, obviously, because Google's just giving me a bunch of fucking nonsense.
And that's, I couldn't find it.
Like ATF lowers, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'll have to do some digging later on. This is going to take too long. This is going to take a dive, essentially.
Yeah. Ghost guns recovered between 2016 and 2020.
Yeah. And being able to actually find that is another thing.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, man. Ghost guns. I'm also wondering, because a lot of times when specifically legislatures, when they want to quote some form of statistics while passing legislation, which is going to be completely meaningless to anybody else 10 years down the road, so they feel like they need to provide justification for the law they want to put in there, can generally find and fit whatever statistics they want to the best persuade people to in their argument to back the legislation.
Okay, so I just found it. This is the Justice Department, right? Justice.gov. Okay, this is from a document. Justice Department proposes new regulation to update firearm definitions. This is from Friday, May 7th, 2021. This is from the third paragraph in. As the proposed rule explains, from 2016 to 2020, more than 23,000 unserialized firearms were reported to have been recovered by law enforcement from potential crime scenes, including in connection with 325 homicides or attempted homicides. The proposed rule, once implemented, would help address the proliferation of these unserialized firearms in 3 ways. To help keep guns from being sold to convinced You have got to be fucking kidding me. You have got to be fucking kidding me. They're lying. Oh my God. They just changed the wording of this statistic to fit their fucking law and narrative.
Yep.
I just read it here from this document.
What's that just saying?
You've got to be fucking kidding me.
23.
To help keep guns from being sold to convicted felons and other prohibited purchasers, the rule would make clear that retailers must run background checks before selling kits that contain the parts necessary for someone to readily make a gun at home. To help law enforcement trace guns used in a crime, the rule would require the manufacturer to include a serial number on the firearm frame or kit. To help reduce the number of ghost guns, quote-unquote ghost guns, on the streets, the rule would set out a requirement for federally licensed firearm dealers to have a serial number added to 3D printed guns or other unserialized firearms to take into inventory.
So again, like I just said, they found a statistic and they skewed it to fit their legislation to justify them passing this thing when we just
fucking assholes.
Right there, justice.gov. What do you? Yeah, and I really, really empathize with your feeling of whether or not you should even send in comments, because this is disingenuous, obviously. I mean, these people are trying to pull one over because they feel like they want to get... because why would they do this other than to just take guns away from people? Which there's only... How many reasons are there for a government to want to remove guns from their citizens? Only a couple. None of them are good. So, obviously, there's that one. The last one, you didn't hit this last piece of legislation while I was in
state preemption,
right?
No.
The preemption.
So the state preemption, what this means
I have to move you on before you get too angry.
No, it's fine. The state preemption, what that means is that jurisdictions, counties, and cities would be able to pass their own firearms legislation within the state that supersedes the state legislation.
Yes.
Which would mean that cities like Seattle or Olympia or things like that. This one, I believe, really only concerns open carry.
Yes, this particular one is about open carry.
This particular one has to do with them being able to ban open carry in those jurisdictions. Yep. There was already one.
Because Washington State, as a state, is an open carry state.
It's in the Constitution, I believe, that you can have a firearm. So
again, fuck them for not proposing an amendment to get rid of that. They'll just try to sneakily do it.
Yeah. So
these people.
What that would mean would be that if some of these laws weren't passed, like if the magazine ban wasn't passed, right, then in the larger term, not in regards to this legislation, because this legislation, like Colin said, like I said, has to do just with open carry, right? But it would mean that other cities or counties could ban open carry and it would supersede the state law, the state constitution that says that open carry is legal. So that was done last year for protests. You can no longer open carry a firearm at protest in Washington State.
I actually have it pulled up because the language was
it's very particular, but yes, you can't open carry at like a sanctioned protest,
permanent event. I believe
permanent
it was.
event. That's what it is. Yeah, a permanent event. So, and now they're looking to, obviously, like we said, to
any permanent demonstrations. There it is.
So. There are
you can have a right to protest. Here's a permit to protest, but to exercise your First Amendment,
some of your other
you
rights.
can't have your Second Amendment.
Yes.
Sorry, unless you're concealing and nobody sees it, in which case nothing matters. It's just about open carry.
It's open carry.
Which, again, is fucking stupid.
So, like I said, this state preemption just has to do with open carry. There's 5% of me that's like, I don't give a fuck. Open carry is stupid as fuck anyway. The other half of me is like, that's dumb. This is unconstitutional. You shouldn't be doing this shit. This is fucking dumb. You know?
Yeah.
When the only people who have been shot at open carry events have been people in like the not fucking around crew. I don't know why we're passing legislation like this. It's fucking stupid. It's because people are scared of guns.
Nope.
And we've talked about that in the past. The idea that someone carrying a gun is intimidation is
a misunderstanding of what a gun is.
It's also indicative, of the very understanding of a firearm, which is your own problem. If you are made afraid by this, then that is your own problem. This is not a threat for me to open carry a firearm and express and exercise my constitutionally held rights.
Yeah.
That's not a threat to you, you know?
No.
I fucking conceal carry a gun all the time. So I can't imagine how many people would be threatened if they were to find out that I had a firearm all of the time, whether they knew it or not.
Yep.
You know,
the simple fact that constitutional carry exists is justification to me enough that I guess I'll just put it realistically: in any state that has a concealed carry ability, there should be no reason why anybody can't open carry throughout the entire state.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea who is carrying and who is not. So what is the fucking deal? You should assume everybody's carrying. If you are in a state that allows any form of concealed carry, you should assume everyone's packing.
Yeah.
So why not then have an open carry law with that? Unless, of course, unless it's not actually about the gun, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not about the gun. It's just about control. Or it's about getting rid of the gun, I guess, because who wants to go through the process of trying to become open carry in a state in which you can't, or concealed carry in a state of which you can't open carry?
Well, my concern is the overcomplication of it. That this, again, like many of the things, my concern is that it's a stepping stone to other state preemption laws. Mm-hmm. That then, you can ban, like I said, a magazine ban in Seattle, or just a straight up concealed carry ban in Seattle. You can't have a gun here. We're just not going to do that anymore. Not only does it begin to further infringe on what I interpret, what are your constitutional rights, it also creates a complicated web of laws that then somebody who's trying to just not get arrested has to keep up with if they want to go to the fucking city and see a play, you know,
Yeah.
or go and see a concert or go to a fucking football game. I mean, you can't have a gun in a stadium anyway, but you know, somewhere where normally you could have a gun and then Seattle decides that you can't, now you have to decide, do I have to carry a different firearm? Do I have to carry a different magazine? Can I carry a gun at all?
Yeah.
Can I have a knife here? Can I do this? Like,
Which is already conversations people have when they think about like crossing a state line
Right.
with a gun.
Well, the last time I went to
Now
Oregon,
you're going to have to think about what
Yeah.
cities you're walking into, what county line you're going to cross.
the last time I went to Oregon, I was racked with the decision of, am I going to continue to conceal carry and risk potentially getting pulled over and then having a firearm if something happens, and then I'm going to definitely get arrested and go to jail, or
Big
do
boy
I
jail.
keep my gun in the back seat or something like that, unloaded, and if something happens, I'll grab it and put the magazine, and then fucking I carried it. I thought about it for a day, and I just kept carrying it. I'm like, I'm just not. I don't care. You know, that was really when I was at the point of like, this is all unconstitutional. I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to do what I want anyway. So hopefully the statute of limitations is out, and I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter.
Nobody can prove it.
No, it doesn't matter. But
Prove that shit in a court of law, bitch.
yeah, so it's just it's too much.
It is too much.
So as far as gun laws go, I can't tell anybody how they should vote on anything. I would suggest, if this matters to you and you have faith in this system, that you put in your public comment. I think for some of them it's already too late. If you really care, you can call your representative, you can call your senator, you can talk to them. That option stands for me. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to hear what they have to say. That's my own personal take on it. I don't want to talk to Drew Hansen about this because I don't think that he understands, and I don't think that he cares. I don't want to talk to Tara Simmons because I don't think she understands, and I don't think that she cares, because she's one of the co-signers for the home manufacture ban, you know, so you obviously don't understand, you know, you don't understand this issue, and it's a complicated issue, and I don't see how someone can keep up with a plethora of different states. Exactly.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's what I was saying at the beginning. It's extremely complicated, and I understand if people don't care enough to concern themselves with that. You know, it's only after I started owning guns that any of this mattered to me at all. So I understand.
Well, and the
But
sad
I
thing is, too.
don't think that means that those people should have. I struggle that those people have the same say in whether or not these laws are passed as I do, when they don't care and they don't understand. It doesn't affect their life at all. They are perfectly willing to leave their personal safety up to the state and to the police force, and that's fine. That's fine that you want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't trust them to do that. I don't trust that they have my best interest at heart. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave myself and my friends and you unprotected from the state if they decide to fucking pop off. I don't want to do that. That's fine if you want to. I don't want to do that. That seems like a really bad idea, and I don't want to be involved in that.
Yeah, all you're really asking at that point is for you to have your constitutional rights, and for them to not take advantage of it.
And
That's
I
fine.
refuse to concede.
Like
I refuse to concede.
You guys don't want to take advantage of that. That's fine. Go to town. You don't have to. I want to. This is my constitutional right to do this, and you're going to tell me I can't do that. I'm not telling you that you have to. Maybe I should. Maybe I should be advocating that everybody is mandated to own a fucking firearm and take training every year. It's the exact thing you're telling me, except in reverse. You want crime to go down? Crime will fucking go down if everybody's packing. If everybody in this nation, you are 18 years old, you are required to carry a gun on you at all times. And if you don't, the cops come over and check you. It's the same exact thing you're asking me to do, but in reverse. Because your view on how this American society should work is contrary to my own. We have different values. National divorce.
Yeah, no, I know.
This is the shit.
No, that's correct.
This is the shit.
I think that's very accurate.
This is why we use this to segue, didn't we?
So the next one that we have here is, again, we're going to stay local just for now, is we have, as you pulled up here, right, bill that is being supported by our Governor Jay Inslee.
Shout out Timcast, by the way, for offering this this fantastic little article, by the way.
Shout out Timcast.
It was great. Because Timcast is essentially national coverage. This is the internet. They report on all sorts of shit.
Yes.
And to have a Washington-centered story means something. You know, just local politics is only local until it's national.
Yes.
So,
Inslee has expressed support for a bill that would make it a misdemeanor for elected officials and candidates to knowingly spread misinformation if it could cause violence. It's very qualified. It's a very qualified bill that's if your speech could cause violence or is likely to cause violence and you are an elected official or you're a candidate, then it's a misdemeanor for these things to happen. It's obviously directed at Donald Trump.
There it is.
Obviously directed straight
Yes.
at Donald Trump. And in regards to...
Because there's only one thing that they added to this bill. I'm going to show it right now.
Yes.
There's only one piece of that they added. It says, his or her conviction of a felony, a gross misdemeanor for knowingly making false statements regarding the election process or results as described in Section 2 of this act, which is, again, so this whole law right now, the Senate Bill 5843 speaks to RCW 4212.010, is all about what it takes to open a seat in Congress. What allows somebody to get kicked out. And essentially your term runs up, you do some felonies, somebody dies, or you have a gross misdemeanor, his or her conviction of a felony. That's another thing to get you kicked out of the state house. Or you have
the gross misdemeanor. So also
Amen.
if you're found guilty of this, you also are barred from running for office again.
Yes, that's the beauty of it. It's not just it's not just like a slap on the wrist deal where all of a sudden like, oh yeah, bad. You get a misdemeanor and a fine because it's bad. No, you don't get to be in Congress anymore.
Get kicked the fuck out.
So
wow,
Joe Biden out of office then, from the sounds of it.
Ooh.
Because he just questioned the validity of all elections before and future, unless things got passed. But hey, whatever.
Could find at least one clip of
fucking
Jay
Inslee
talking about Russia. I think
it's got to be real simple.
Definitely find one.
I'm going to.
Oh, I think you.
Can I
I
send
don't
that to
think
Tara?
you'll have a hard time with it. No, I don't think you'll have a hard time. The next thing I have written here is I find it unlikely to pass, but I don't agree with almost any limitation on speech, any limitations at all. I have a big issue with this being based on the big lie, right?
The big lie. What is the big lie, Donovan?
The big lie is the name that has been given to Donald Trump's insistence that there was enough fraud in the 2020 election. YouTube, Donald Trump's insistence. Let me be very clear. Donald Trump's insistence that there was enough fraud in the 2020 election to turn it over and that Joe Biden is not the actual winner of the 2020 election.
Yes. The big lie is Donald Trump is the president, Joe Biden is not.
Yes.
That's the big lie.
And it's so gross.
It is so stupid.
The term the big lie is so gross.
Yeah. If you want to know the big fucking lie, look at Congress.
Yeah, it's
done.
Not good.
All of them.
No, Eurasia has never been at war with East Asia.
Never.
Yeah, no.
Never.
So it's not good. So
what was the other one? Shit. It's East Asia or Eurasia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna remember. Don't worry about it.
No, I don't.
1984 stuff.
You guys know what we're talking about. So who decides what the truth is, right? Everyone has a different line for violence, right? These are like my big things. You're saying it's likely to cause violence. Well, everybody has a different line for what's going to cause them to then go to violence.
It used to be easy. We used to have fighting words.
So,
that was real.
Yeah.
That was real. I mean, they were dueling and shit over that.
Right. So whose line for violence are we talking about? You know, are you talking about someone like Joe Rogan? That you could probably say anything you could think of to Joe Rogan, he would likely not strike you.
Yeah.
You know,
unless you said you were about to kill him. Probably.
But if you said some of that other shit, your brother, you know, Chad's likely to pop off a lot quicker than Joe Rogan.
Yeah, probably.
You know,
probably.
Not that he's like a hot rod or anything like that, but he's got a little bit of a short temper.
It's Joe Rogan is centered as fuck.
Chad just operates.
He meditates every day,
at a high
bro.
level. Chad just is.
He's a high energy individual.
Yeah. That's what. High energy individual. Yeah. So
Trump would be a huge fan.
If you get
high energy Chad,
you get froggy with Chad, he's gonna leave. Joe Rogan's gonna hang out for way longer than Chad's gonna hang out. So that's really what I'm getting at. Are we talking about Chad's line for violence, or are we talking about Joe Rogan's line for violence? We're talking about my friend Chad's line for violence, because his is even going to be lower than your brother Chad's line for violence.
I believe it.
My buddy Chad is a real street respect guy. If you talk to him wrong, he's likely to punch you in the face. Just,
good.
Chad is just a real street respect type of guy. So whose line of violence are we talking about? You know, like that's very important.
I know the answer to this question.
I am no longer at the point, like and not that I really ever did. Like I'm no longer at a point where I'll fight for honor. I'm not going to fight because I've been insulted by somebody, or I'm way past that.
I ain't going to jail for you, asshole.
I got a kid. I got another kid on the way. Yeah, I got way other shit to be worried about than whether or not this person talked to me the wrong way.
My honor has been mismatched.
I don't care. I would like to go home, and that's what matters to me. I want to go home, So if it's going to escalate to the point that I can't go home or I may not be able to go home, that is in which I will respond. I'm not here for honor. I'm not here for fucking any of that shit. I don't care whether or not you respect me. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Which is why it's important to remember the person whose line we're talking about here of what constitutes violence, where is that line, is the government's line.
Yes.
Whatever it is that they say is the line. And as I think we can attest, especially over the last 2 years, that line can change any minute.
Oh, yeah.
So it's super dangerous.
And that goes to my first question. Who decides what the truth is, right? We have
the man.
Everybody on the left essentially saying that this was the safest and most secure election of all time, right?
Thank God for that shadowy cabal that
fortified
the election. Thank God.
So again, just to re-qualify it, right? We have said 1,000 times, Joe Biden is the president. Joe Biden won the election. However,
I mean, Kamala is really the president because Joe Biden's kind of brain dead. But.
We have fucking documentaries on HBO.
Word?
Documentaries on fucking HBO.
I had a conversation. I told somebody about this like on fucking Friday.
It's too much. It's too. You can't say they don't exist because I've literally watched them myself.
Yep.
I've watched them myself. I've seen people be able to hack into voting machines that we used in the 2020 election, and no one knew about it.
Yep.
You are lying to me.
And the people that
when you tell me that the opportunity doesn't exist, you're lying to me.
Yep.
When you're telling me that the opportunity doesn't exist in mail-in voting, you're lying to me. There are videos from Project Veritas, whether you think they're real, of people fucking ballot harvesting. People taking gangs of fucking ballots and turning them in. We can talk policy all day on whether or not you think people should be able to ballot harvest or they shouldn't. Right now, you can't because it's fucking illegal and they did it.
Yep.
Right? That happened. There's the fucking woman in Arizona who's hemmed up. She's in fucking jail for... Right, it was Arizona, right?
Yes.
She's in fucking jail for ballot harvesting.
And that was
for paying people. So
that was a state race, too.
What are we talking about? You can't tell me that's not real. You can't tell me there's no question it was the most secure and most safe when you haven't resolved these issues with voting machines. You can't tell me that. That is a lie.
Yep.
So whose line of truth are we talking about? Because I think that you're fucking lying out of your asshole. Because I can show you the HBO documentaries that prove it. So whose line of truth are we talking about, right? And that's the concern with things like that, is that
Amy Klobuchar can speak in that documentary about the danger of about said voting machines, and then 8 years later say, no, that's not real. Or be proselytizing the complete polar opposite, but the same thing. So I don't...
And in
who
that
do you believe? Who gets to say what's true?
Show, like I said, in that documentary, they show machines that were used in the 2020 election cycle. Those machines that people who live in their house or maybe in their mom's basement or something, if you want to like get real fucking shitty about it, maybe let's denigrate them, right? They live in their mom's basement and they can hack the fucking voting machines. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Your line of truth is the same thing of the sliding scale of liberty that we used to have in this country. That if you want it to be really free, you go in Texas, buy a piece of land, and no one will ever talk to you again. You leave by yourself. No one will ever talk to you again. Or you go live in Seattle. You can live in New York City. You can't own a gun.
Be told
we're going to try and take away your body armor, your passive defense for anything like that. Armor. We're going to try and take all that away, right? Yeah. If you want Big Daddy State to take care of you, just come and live in New York City. You'll be okay. Get really, 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 really poor. Work only like 10 hours a week. We'll just fill up everything else. If you want to be completely self-sufficient, go live in the woods somewhere. No one will ever talk to you again. You can make your own electrical grid. You can fucking Ruby Ridge it. And as long as you don't soften any shotguns that we paid you to do because we entrapped you, no one will ever know that you're here.
Yeah.
So that doesn't exist anymore, right?
It would be nice if it did, right?
Yes.
It would be nice if you could just choose a place where I want to go live underneath the auspices of the government. Or I could find a place that I don't have to do that. There is no such thing. Maybe the wilderness of Alaska.
And they're using,
but then odds are you're going to die.
They're using this same sliding scale effect to choose what is and is not true. The truth
will set you free.
it also doesn't waver. Like, the reality is the reality. And one time I used to go to therapy all the time, right? And I was talking about this show and the things that we're doing. Like, it's fact-based, blah, 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 blah. And she said, well, facts are really like a really small, minute amount of things. Like a fact is like the sky is blue. No. You're no. You're not gonna.
I'm finding a new therapist if that's what we're doing.
I stopped talking about politics like immediately. Like,
well, not only that, but I don't trust your judgment anymore.
Yeah, it's so.
If that's what a fact is, and that's the only thing a fact can be, I don't want you trying to explain my mental problems here. Okay?
Yeah.
If I got issues, I'm not listening to you. Fuck, that's terrifying.
It's not good.
No.
It's really not good. So. No.
I don't know why that's so funny. Sorry.
It's important, and it's something to track, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind living in the woods and be a recluse, but I would worry about needing a root canal and getting to a dentist.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is
so specific.
Well, back in the day when
Right.
people used to go live in the woods, yeah, you get a cut, you get infected, and you die. Oops.
What was the name
Versus if I lived in the city, I just go down and get some ointment, and I'm good.
What's the name of the dentist?
That fucking Into the Wild movie, bro. Dentist in
Django.
Oh. Okay, those weren't dentists, bro. Those were just
But
dudes that had pliers.
What I'm saying.
I mean, let's be real here. Dentist wasn't a thing until like Western medicine really kicked in. But yeah, sorry. The dentist from Django. I don't know. I don't remember a dentist from Django, but
Well, this other main character, Christoph, whatever his name is, that guy is like, he's a dentist by trade who's also an assassin.
oh yeah.
He's also a bounty
okay.
hunter.
That's right.
But he is a dentist.
Yeah, because he kept. Yeah, that's right. Now I remember.
Doesn't
It's been
matter.
a long time
The
since I saw
reference
Django.
is far lost now.
Yeah, right.
Happy to be here. Thank you guys for joining us. Take this opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hit the socials, right? It's going to happen in 3 minutes anyway. So thank you guys, everyone, for joining us here. YouTube.com/SaltOfTheStreets. We have our Instagram at Salt of the Streets. We have our Facebook. Fuck Facebook. It's Salt of the Streets. Patreon.com, Salt of the Streets. If you guys want to go there, sign up, become a patron. Help us make more, better content. Discord, Salt of the Streets. Making my mouth water. We have Lexi Kyle on
Salt of
Twitch.
sugar.
Colin's wife. If you want to watch some streaming, my wife makes cakes, leggings, and aprons on Instagram. If you want to go there,
She makes cakes, leggings, and aprons.
makes cakes on leggings and aprons on Instagram. Like, comment on this video, share with your friends, subscribe to everything. If you need a haircut, go down to Swell Blended. If you need a skateboard, Location Skate Shop.
Django was a great movie, Lenny.
Django's a fantastic movie. We have the book club coming out in this month, right?
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that. We'll remind again at the end of the episode. Lonesome Lenny, if you're into reading, we got a book club coming up.
What's the book you're doing in February?
For February is going to be In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. I'm going to put out the list, Lenny, on Monday on our Instagram.
I like people that say it like
you-
that. Wednesday, Monday.
Wednesday. So the full list will be out on Monday. If you want to join, we're going to start up a new Discord channel and get all that going. It's going to be a good time. SaltOfTheStreets.com for all this information. We have the D is silent.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks.
We
The
have
Django. But it's that movie, Django Unchained.
yes, Django Unchained. I was going to say something else. Oh, the clips in the beer time. That's all.
Clips, beer time.
New beer time dropped yesterday. Tropichronic.
Yep.
This is a fantastic beer. Thank you.
Yee.
Okay,
I'm
so
about to go grab another one.
I will do it. I have to go pee, so I'll do
Okay.
it.
Word.
If you want, we can move on to voting bills. If you want to talk a little bit about some of the voting bills, if you want.
The voting bills. We can talk about the voting bills.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what
Do you
we're
want me to
talking
do
about.
it? You don't want to.
I'm going to pontificate for a
riff
minute.
for- yeah, go ahead.
About why, basically some of the verbiage that's really been pissing me off. About before we dive into like the actual like meat and potatoes of what these bills involve. You've colloquially heard them referred to lately as the voting rights bills. Well, if newsflash for anybody that doesn't quite understand, voting rights have been ensconced since the 1960s through civil rights legislation. Every American has an equal right to show up at the ballot box and cast their vote. There's nothing on the books legally saying that you can't do that. So the narrative built simply by calling these things voting rights legislation, the voting rights bill, it's disingenuous, first of all, because it doesn't allow any new rights at all. You still have the same exact rights as you do now. There's no difference really there. There are differences throughout how you can and cannot vote and who is allowed to, as far as our social media alarm is going off. We're going to reach around and see if we can silence that real quick. Boop, 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 boop. I don't know how to shut this off. I'm sorry, buddy. Restart. Done. So, when we talk about the voting rights legislation, we're just colloquially referring to them as voting rights legislation. But what we're really about to talk to is a complete another, not revamp, but rebuild of our entire voting system nationally. And for the first time ever in history, we're entertaining the concept of elections being run on a national level instead of a state level, which is as it's prescribed in the U.S. Constitution. All states are responsible for the manner in which they run their elections. Thank you, sir. This legislation that we are about to talk about nationalizes all that and removes some, if not all, the power of the state in how they run their elections. It pulls that responsibility away from the states and puts it towards the national federal government.
Yes.
Which, if there's any indication of most things the Fed does, I have a feeling that they're it was going off, the alarm. I figured out how to shut it off.
Word.
It's not an iPhone, and I'm learning how to operate an Android. Just kidding, because my new phone will be an Android of some kind.
I'm here for it.
So, but yeah, as we get into these voting rights bills, know that they are not about voting rights. They're about the usurpation of the right of the state to run their own elections.
And that's why I called them voting bills, right?
Yeah,
It's not
voting
voter
bills,
rights
yeah.
bills, because
I just say colloquially, that's how
Right.
people are hearing them these days. And I think, overhaul. I think it was the way Tim Pool's been putting it. He's been really trying to hammer on don't call it a voting rights bill. Call it a voting reform bill or a voting overhaul or something like that. Because that's what it really is. The first time we're ever actually entertaining the concept of the national government running elections, which is fucking insane to think about.
And that's what I have written here. Yes, I think that the conversation on if and what to do about elections is totally legitimate. You know, however, I don't feel that. But I'm thinking that centralizing anything anymore is a bad idea. I do not think that is the solution to anything. Is centralizing anything?
Yeah. Centralization bad.
Yes, it's not a good idea.
Yes.
Of anything we've had over the last 2 years.
Decentralize everything.
And that's why I said centralizing anything anymore is because over the last 2 years we've seen so many things be ceded to the executive on the state and the federal level that to cede anything more to them is a mistake.
Yeah.
It's an enormous mistake, especially when you're talking about something like elections, as we talked about earlier, and you were just talking about, is constitutionally designated to the states. It is up to you as a state to decide how your election is run.
Yep. We tell you the day, and that's about it.
Yes.
Everything else is up to you.
I did say to Josh Keaton in a private conversation during the 2020 election, so I cannot believe there isn't some type of guidelines for, like, you got to at least do this, you know. But
you know what's funny too is I would have 2 years ago, I would have agreed with the idea of the federal government publishing guidelines.
Yeah.
About here's states, here's a template at which we think as a federal government is a good way to run a clean election. Here you go. You can there if you want. If not, school, whatever.
Like they did the red flag laws.
Until COVID is really what did it. Because when you think about all the mandates we've been subject to and all the lockdowns we've been subject to, very little of it has been mandate from the federal government.
Right.
It's been guidelines from federal government agencies
that then get mandated by the states.
And so 2 years ago, I would have thought that was a great idea, just like you would have entertained that idea with Josh
Right.
Keaton. Today, going hard fucking no, you stay out.
Yeah.
This is my shit. I live in this state. I have to deal with my idiot governor. You don't. Stay out. I don't want him getting any more ideas from you.
Yeah.
Okay? Everything you say, he parrots. Shut up. Go away. I don't want to think about you. Let me worry about my own state and how we run our own business.
So I have an article somewhere. I think it's from the LA Times. That is kind of a rough explainer of what is in these two bills, right? It's Hr1 and Hr4. And Hr1, I believe, is...
Used to be known as the For the People Act.
and I think that it's like the
Now it's
Voting Rights Act known as Hr4 or the John Lewis Rights...
Yeah, the John Lewis
Voting
bill.
Rights Advancement Act is what it is called. So this is from this article. Do you want me to send you this article?
Tell me what it is real quick.
It is
Find it.
LA Times explainer, the differences between the two voting rights bills.
Okay.
I also hate the word explainer.
It's kind of like fact sheet.
I
You can go
hate it.
fuck
Here's
yourself.
an explainer. You
Oh,
know?
shit. I'm doing it on the laptop, not on the computer.
Here's just a quick explainer. I hate it. I hate that.
It's so condescending, is what it is.
You're talking about fucking centralizing voting rights. Like, you're talking about centralizing the way that elections are going to be done. It's an explainer. This isn't something that should be done in just 2 minutes. You know, I'm using this as a tool to talk about it for a half hour. Like, this should not be done in 2 minutes on a fucking article. You know, there you go. Okay.
No, go ahead and call me Jamie. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
So let's see
The difference between the two voting rights bills.
What's in the bills? Hr1's number shows it's important to Democrats, also known as the For the People Act. It became Hr1 because it was the first bill on the House floor after Democrats retook the chamber in 2018 election. Also, this has been on the floor before. So
Yes.
the bill does a little about a lot of topics. It changes the way people vote by automatically registering every eligible citizen, which I believe means like when you turn 18, you just are automatically registered, guaranteeing mail and early in-person voting options in every state, and in effect neutering voter identification laws. I think it outlaws voter identification, makes it completely illegal.
Voter ID is racist, bro.
Yeah, voter ID is racist as fuck.
Don't forget.
The legislation would also establish bipartisan commissions to draw the lines for legislative districts and require redistricting not favor either major party. This provision has the potential to create scores of newly competitive districts, and supporters say it would help counter the partisan polarization in the House. Okay, so let's start here for a second, right? Because we covered, I'm pretty sure, within the last 4 years, well, we're doing the show for 4 years, so within the last 2 years,
Damn.
the Supreme Court found and ruled that gerrymandering, which is the drawing of districts within the state, right, is meant to be a partisan venture.
Indeed.
They ruled that.
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be partisan, right? It is supposed to incentivize you to get more people within the legislature so that they have the then ability to draw the districts, right? And it still is on a bipartisan to the effect that one party has a majority on the board, but there still has to be members of the other party on that board.
Yep.
And so this is going to probably take one member away from that board or add a member and make sure that it's split 50-50 on who's on that board, right? So again, or immediately, we have an issue because this particular issue on the gerrymandering has already been decided. The federal government already said this is how it's supposed to be. It's designed this way. And that was before, I'm fairly certain it was before Brett Kavanaugh was on the court, which means that it's before Amy Coney Barrett was on the court. So that was still when you're still at a fairly split court. It's not the conservative majority that they're talking about now. You know, that means RBG is still in the court. Like it's still split.
And
then they decided. Why don't you look up real quick when they
who was
decided?
that?
Just so, and then we'll know because RBG died last year, and Brett Kavanaugh was in the year before. So if it was before 2020, or before 2019, or in 2019, then we'll know that RBG was still alive.
this is
And it
HR1, right?
This is when the Supreme Court found that gerrymandering was that
Supreme Court
yes,
gerrymandering.
that decision.
Oh, fuck. It's not jury. It's Jerry.
Jury, yeah. It's
Gary.
like Gerry,
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Yeah, because as we already said,
I
the
always forget
Supreme
about
Court has already found that it's supposed to be political, right? So,
2019.
2019.
6/27/2019.
Okay. So I'm pretty certain that that's before Brett Kavanaugh was in office or was on the bench. right? And even if it wasn't, again, you're still talking about RBG is still in the court. Like you still have a split on there.
He was nominated President Trump 2018 and has served since October 6, 2018.
Okay, so
the
he was
previous
on the court.
judge.
It was 2019, so he was on the court. So there was a slight conservative majority on the court. Nothing, or not like it, not nothing, because there's only one more conservative on the court now. But
he was nominated July and has been serving since October 6, 2018.
regardless,
Gorsuch was
the year before that.
The year before that, because we
Yes.
were still
that was
at,
when Scalia died.
Yes, and we were both, I think, still at
Bennick,
Bennick at that point.
because we
hadn't
listened
started
to it.
this
We
yet.
listened to the Gorsuch hearings live and
That's right.
talked about him over the table.
We were arguing.
Yes. Yeah. And we agreed on some
The
stuff, I
good
remember, but yeah,
times.
there was definitely some splits.
Did you want him on the court?
So
Do you remember?
I don't think there was anything that I heard that was overwhelmingly that I was opposed
no,
to it.
yeah.
You know, and there was some stuff like I know, like the ice truck case, some way that he decided some things I was
Yeah.
not in favor of.
Stare decisis.
Yeah,
shit
but there
a
was
little-
nothing that was so overwhelming
Yeah.
that I was opposed to it. Just like Brett Kavanaugh, there was nothing that was so overwhelming. I
Yeah.
think I was even more in favor of Brett Kavanaugh than I was Neil Gorsuch.
mostly because of Ford.
Yeah, that was not
Just-
good.
I was just done with it. Anyways,
So yeah, we'll go back to the previous
explainer.
Yep, at the top. So let's see the first changes: automatic registration. I don't personally have a problem with that automatic voter
Yes.
registration.
Now this, I was going to ask you.
You know,
The
'cause right now
automatic.
you gotta like register at like festivals and shit when you go to a fucking
you can
Warped tour and there's people walking around and they're like, "Hey, are you fucking registered to vote, man?"
Hey, man.
That's
Yeah.
how I registered to vote at
At fucking Hempfest.
Hempfest.
Yes.
Yes, I was at Hempfest. And
You know what votes you're
and
getting
the
at
guy
that
said,
point.
"Are you registered to vote?" And I said, "No."
No.
Do you want to register, man?
Yeah.
Sure.
Does it come with a free joint?
Sure,
I
man.
got a joint for my jab. Do I get a joint for signing up?
Actually,
I
when
don't have a
turned-
problem with mandating it
Do it.
as you would the selective service. If this is going to be a citizen's duty to vote, you shouldn't have a choice whether you register. You can have a choice whether you actually vote, but you shouldn't have a choice in whether you're registered to do that thing.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know, I get worked up about registries nowadays. Like any kind. I don't care if it's about voting. I don't care if it's about what kind of fucking guns you have. I don't want the government to know we exist, period.
Fair.
But
Fair.
realistically,
Yes.
yeah, you're 18, you get registered to vote automatically. No party affiliation. Because right now, if you register to vote, you have to register as a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. You have 3 options.
Yeah.
Everybody should be registered as an independent unless you opt in to one
a
of the
party.
parties in which you can participate in a primary.
Right.
And I don't think you should have to be in a primary. Ooh, I don't know about this. I don't know if this is fair game or not. Tell me if it's just too far afield. But
Let's
when
hear it.
when it comes, because we're talking about voting rights,
Yep.
when
We're
it comes
pontificating
to who ultimately gets elected to office, we have one of 2 choices. We have to pick the lesser of 2 evils. But you're only allowed to participate in a primary if you are a member of the party.
Correct.
Correct me if I am wrong.
You are correct. I am registered as independent. I do not get to vote in the primaries.
Word. Now, it is the primaries is where it's at. The primary is when you get the trucker candidate that is just throwing his name on the list because that's what somebody's got to run against this motherfucker, and that's how he gets elected.
Yeah.
Because people go out and they vote him in the primaries. The plebs vote in the primaries to say who the party gets to nominate,
Yeah.
which is incentive for everybody to be a party member of some kind.
It incentivizes the two-party
Otherwise,
system.
you are subject to the 2 parties and
Yes.
whatever it is that they say. So as an independent, you are partyless and you have to bow down to the parties.
Yes.
The minority, I would assume. Most
Which
people,
is-
I wouldn't be curious how many people, I'm going to run that real quick.
Which is why the founding fathers had concerns about a two-party government
Mm-hmm.
system from the very beginning. I mean, from day one,
Mm-hmm.
from before day one, you had people writing about the concerns of a two-party system. So
Cautious
it's-
of factions.
yeah. So it's been this way literally since the founding. This has been the problem, and it devolved into two parties almost immediately between Republicans and Federalists. Almost
Yeah.
immediately. You
Uh,
know?
In the founding era of the nation, first few elections and whatnot, we didn't have the Democrats and Republicans.
No, we had the Republicans and the
Whigs.
Federalists.
The Federalists, I thought the Whig Party was around for a while, was it not?
I believe that was a little bit later because in the beginning there was no parties.
Yeah.
And so it was only during George Washington that people like John Adams that were favoring a more centralized government were beginning to be called Federalists. And it was everybody else who wasn't in favor of that was a Republican.
I'm about to get really angry. You're about to get really angry. 2021, December 1st. Republican percentage. This is, out of all the people registered to vote, this is what their party affiliation is. 26% Republican, 42% Independent, 30% Democrat.
Ooh.
So now, the independents are only outranked by the two parties together. So unless if you are a partisan, you have the majority over the independents who don't want to be affiliated with a party. You tell me that is not a fucked up way to run a goddamn government.
Yeah.
I mean, all those people that do not prescribe to either party, which are both less individually than the independents, but combined, the partisans win, and they have more control over us.
Especially
and who we get to vote for.
On a party level, that cuts directly against the idea of a republic, right? Yeah. Which is the establishment.
This is democracy at fucking work.
Yeah, it's a two-party system, exactly. And like you said, if you aren't part of those two parties, then you are at their...
You're in the 42%. You're in the minority. You don't get a vote.
Yes.
You just have to vote for whoever the partisans decide you can vote for.
Yes.
Ugh. It's a problem with democracy.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. And I will say this. Through history, let's see, 2021, 2022, 2019, generally speaking, the independent generally in the high 30s to low 40s, which means that technically independents are the majority. They're the plurality.
And I would definitely argue
throughout the last, I'm just going down the list here. I'm in 2010, 30s. I mean, high 30s, low 40s, man. That's it.
And I would definitely argue that this highlights the dangers of a two-party system in a pure...
That is fucked up.
In a pure democracy.
I've never really looked at the numbers like that.
Yes, this highlights the dangers of a pure democracy because that plurality is being completely ignored.
We're being controlled by the partisans.
Yes. And it's completely
have a great weekend, Lenny. I don't know if I missed that. You're out of here, buddy.
Antithetical to the idea of a democratic republic, which we're supposed to be living in.
Yeah, we're supposed to be living in.
It kind of, to me, harkens back to the question I asked you last week about the filibuster, right? And the pushing by the Democrats towards a more pure democratic system, right?
Yeah.
And like the pushing for removing of the filibuster, and things like that. There's been a renewed push to take out the filibuster ever since
the voting rights bill became a thing. That's what they're calling the voting rights bill.
Yes.
Because this was voted down
Friday.
And
they're talking about how this is,
by filibuster, essentially,
it's
right?
Anti-democratic, but this is a democratic tool to ensure that we aren't working on a very slim majority of one. The Senate.
These are these arguments about two people shouldn't be able to hold back the majority. We're talking about two people in your own fucking party, first of all.
The Senate is designed in such a way that they combat the democratic and divisive nature of the House. Yeah. That's the whole idea. It's not supposed to be split just on 50-50 or 51-49. That's completely counter to the entire idea of the Senate.
Yeah.
That's
the Senate is a Republican institution.
The most Republican body out of all of the sections of the government.
Yeah.
So it's completely counter to the whole idea of the Senate. To take away the filibuster and force a pure democratic 50-50 majority.
And when did the Senate become elected? Not elected, but
elected by the people?
By the people, yeah. By popular vote. There we go. It was 1913?
Damn.
1914. Beginning the general Beginning with 1914 general election, all U.S. senators have been chosen by direct popular election, which is a democratization of the Republican institution of the Senate. So
Which I would
we
argue
have
is
not
a
had a
bad
Republic.
thing.
It is a super bad
I would
thing.
argue is a bad thing. I would be in favor of going back to
If you
because
like a republic.
I would be in favor of going back to how it used to be in the sense, and what I mean is where you vote for your representative and your representatives then elect the senators, right? And I would be in favor of that because it's a decentralization of the government in the way that you have to be more focused on local politics. You have to be because if you want a good senator, you have to pick a good representative. It also holds your representatives to more accountability because more people are paying attention to you. More people have eyes on you, and you have to pay more attention to your constituents because you are electing our further step of federal representation. You know?
I mean, if you fuck that up, bro, you ain't getting reelected.
Yes.
If all of a sudden the populace realizes that you voted for somebody as a senator that they can't stand, you don't have a seat anymore, much less they do. You don't have a seat anymore. Thank God. That would be nice. I think we should go back
I would
to
be
that.
in favor of that.
Yeah.
I don't.
Good luck, though.
I think reading these books about the founding and stuff has really highlighted for me the different portions of our government and of our country that have been centralized, and it's terrifying.
Bad news.
Because it's so. And I know, and it doesn't matter. People could argue this for a million years. You know,
What's
but
the danger of
this
centralization?
government was designed this way for a reason.
Yeah.
It was designed this way for a reason. So to continue to chip away at that because, it just doesn't really make sense anymore seems dumb. Because it's not like...
It doesn't make sense anymore.
It's not like
That
they
just means
sat
you
around
don't understand.
for 5 minutes and they're like, that's going to work the best. You know, it took years. It took fucking years to hammer out and fine-tune exactly how this government was going to be established. They thought about this, right? Of course there are things they can't factor in because it was fucking 1776. Of course there are things they can't factor in. They were really smart. They were really, really smart, right? They knew a little bit about what they were talking about, at least a little bit. So,
I mean, do you think from your readings as of late, do you think they had any actual... Do you think they had any idea that one day the government would be dealing with 300 plus million people?
No.
There's no kind of like language about like growth or anything like that when they're talking about the establishment.
The large cities in 1776, I think Philadelphia had 40,000 people in it.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was any comprehension that America might have 330 million people in it. You know, because like the biggest cities, 40,000 people in there.
Because that would be like my ultimate question is like if you had the ability to travel back to talk to like Benjamin Franklin. The only question, if you had one question to ask him, my question would be, do you know, or has it ever factored into your brain that in the future there's going to be 330 million people in this country?
Yeah.
Think about that as you draft, buddy. Go to town. I'm out. I'll see you in the future.
Yeah.
You know.
So no, I don't personally. I don't think that they were able to. The same way if you sit.
I don't know if you can comprehend that number.
No, the same way if you sit back now and think about, there's 3 billion people or whatever on the planet.
I can't comprehend that.
No one can conceptualize the idea of 3 billion anything. There's a book. This is really good.
That's why like people have to make a thing like an entire football stadium full of cash.
So
that's like trillions of dollars.
So
or
check,
something.
right?
Yeah.
There is a book that's called 12 Million Paper Clips, and it is about a group of maybe junior high kids that were learning about the Holocaust, and one of the kids asked, how much is 12 million?
Yeah.
Because that's how many people died in the Holocaust, the estimated number of people that died in the Holocaust. And so their teacher put out a call on the internet to have people send in boxes of paper clips. And so people found out they're sending boxes and boxes and crates, and celebrities are finding out. So
that would be a lot of paper clips.
12 million paper clips. They filled train cars, right? In plexiglass boxes they put in train cars that they filled with 12 million paper clips. It's a museum now that you can go to. You can walk through and you can see 12 million paper clips so that you can try and conceptualize the amount of people that were murdered in that atrocity. Yes, in an attempt to allow a human being to conceptualize the number 12 million.
That's just 12 million.
And that's the teacher's like, what can I think of that's going to be 12 million? What can I collect 12 million of? And that's how they arrived. I don't remember if it was a man or woman, but that's how they arrived on paper clips. It's like, that's small enough that I can get that and put it in a room or something like that. I'll get a storage facility. But
12 million.
12 million.
12 million paper clips.
Yeah. I recommend it's it's like a picture book almost.
Yeah.
I would recommend
check
everybody
that
check
shit
it out.
out.
Yeah, it's very cool. But yeah, so I don't think that anybody at that time could have comprehended or even conceptualized that number.
God.
I think they knew it was going to get bigger. They knew it was going to grow fast because of how fast the country was growing already.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, did they have a true understanding of what exponential growth was at that point? I don't know.
no.
Yeah. Maybe in numbers, but that's it. Fucking wild shit, dude. Okay. What else is going on in these voting bills here?
Yes.
So we've talked about the
so the
automatic
next part-
registration.
Guaranteeing mail-in early in-person voting options in every state and in effect. So
Yes. I have
I
things to
think
say about
that-
these.
right. So we have states, Washington State, for an example, right? All of our elections are done by mail. We actually have an election going on right now.
Right now?
Midterm
I got my ballot the
elections.
other
I
day.
brought my voter pamphlet. It's actually just four levies that we're voting on.
Yeah.
Um,
Schools and...
it's all schools.
Yeah.
It's all schools. It's all different
schools.
school levies.
This is the first time in my life I'm voting against schools, by the way.
It's not good.
Just because the schools are run by the state, and I know it's not going to be spent well. Sorry.
we should talk about that afterwards.
That's a whole other deal.
I don't have a problem with states deciding that they're going to have mail-in voting if that's what they decide they're going to do. And one of my biggest issue is the federal government deciding, well, you guys are going to do this now, right?
Yes.
And
That's not okay.
my smaller issue aligns with the smaller issue I had in 2020 that you can't force this infrastructure. If the infrastructure is not there, there's going to be problems. You know, if the infrastructure is not there, the enforcement is not there, things like that, you're going to have terrible voting system. It's going to be fucked up, and you're going to have people ballot harvesting and breaking laws and doing all kinds of dirty shit because they weren't prepared to regulate that at the time that it was input. So I have a problem on that vein. Where are you at with this?
Well, I have a...
You say your
I
thoughts.
like-
We'll come to peace at the end.
I like the concept. I like the concept of mail-in voting. I like the way, more or less, we do it in our state. I don't know particularly how this works in our state, other than the fact because I'm registered already.
Signature matching.
Because I'm a signature matching. Oh, okay. So if you are a registered voter, you sign the registration file when you send in your ballot.
I've had a ballot.
That's
To their defense, because I agree with you, I don't think it's super effectual. But to their defense, I've had a ballot sent back because
You have?
Yes, because my signature didn't match whatever their records were.
because, bro, my signatures
I
don't
had
match
to-
from Wednesday to Tuesday.
No, I had to sign. I think I had to sign 3 times on one piece of paper and then send it back.
Okay.
And so then they compared though. I assume, I don't know. They probably said, fuck it, But I assume then they compared those 3 to the one on my ballot and then decided that it was good enough, and then went on
Yeah.
with it. I don't know how often that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that aside, we'll just say, because that's in the finite, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
The concept of mail-in, I like as long as that universal, as long as it can be universal in my mind, as long as the registration is universal. If everybody is registered, then everybody gets a vote in the mail-in. That's fine, right? As long as you have an accurate mailing address on your voter registration, you can get an unsolicited ballot. That's fine because you're already registered. We know who you are. Boom, bing, bang, boom. We get it back. I don't like the idea of unsolicited universal voting.
Right, because there was a lot of
'Cause who
people-
knows who
there
gets
was a
a
lot of
ballot.
people last year that had issues where they went to the polls and then were told, "Oh, we sent your ballot in the mail." And so I
think
didn't request a mail-in ballot. I wanted to come to the polls to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And there's issue of, we already sent you a ballot,
Yeah.
or people getting ballots or not receiving ballots and being told that they had been sent a ballot. So there are definitely issues in that system, and I would say we weren't prepared for that, which
Yeah.
is probably a lot of those issues. But
Yeah.
people like Steven Crowder and stuff like that said that he got a mail-in ballot in Michigan when he lives in Texas now. Is that because he never called to cancel his voter registration?
Did he
in
not
Texas?
update his own shit?
I don't. Which
Was
who
he not
knows?
being responsible?
We obviously
Maybe.
updated at least point because he was voting in Texas. But
yeah.
that also means that his registration in Texas doesn't automatically neutralize his registration in
No.
Michigan, which
Unless you wanted a national voter registration.
also I would also argue speaks to the Republican point of purging voter rolls. If you have people who, if Steven Crowder's lived in Texas for 10 years, which means there's 5 elections he's voted in at the very least, right?
Yeah.
State ones. And if he hasn't voted in 5 years, take his ass off the list. Why the fuck are you still even wasting paper sending him a ballot if he's not voting?
Yeah. If you have sent somebody a ballot and and not received it back for 5 years, goodbye.
For 5 cycles, right? That's
I
just,
would-
that's
oh,
just a number I
cycles, yeah.
picked. But even if it's been 4 years or even 1 year, if you don't get it, I want to vote. Fucking go vote then. Like
Yeah.
go vote then.
God, I
or
would
call and request a mail-in ballot.
Yeah, I'd be super fucking like hard about that. I'd say you missed 2 cycles, you're off the registration.
And I don't see
You're not participating.
I don't
want
see
you
a
on the
problem
ballot.
with that.
Yeah.
You know. And so let's talk.
So in closing, mail-in balloting,
Yes.
not opposed to in concept. We got a lot of details to work out in the meantime, but it needs to be
Yes.
as local as possible. Now, the next portion of that,
yes,
early voting,
early voting.
not a fan of in the slightest. Period. For one, it's unconstitutional. We have a voting date, and it's in the Constitution. It says that day. Period. That's it. Unless you want to, if you want to throw in some amendments, let's talk about that. But right now, no, it's unconstitutional. You have one day to vote, and that's voting day.
And we've talked before about making it a holiday.
Yeah.
Making it a federal holiday so
Word.
people have that day off because
Super into
you
it.
definitely shouldn't have to miss a day of work and pay because you want to go and vote.
Unless you're a government employee. Because if you're a government employee on voting day, government employees should be running elections. State government employees, right?
Yes.
It should, and volunteers, obviously, right? Those people have to work that day because it is the one day of the year that governments need to work, period, right? They have to. So
All hands on deck.
all
that day.
hands on deck. But the rest of the people, no. It's a federal holiday. It's like the reverse
Let
federal
the
holiday,
federal
right?
workers vote a day before.
Well, unless you work for
you got to
the
vote. You got to work.
yeah,
you know.
unless you're on the voting commission or whatever it is, whatever your side gig is as a government employee, everyone else got the day off except for you guys because everybody pulls duty, man. Sorry, today's your day.
Yeah.
But early voting, part of the problem I have with that is 2020. It is the silencing of the Hunter Biden story early on in the polls.
Right. Right.
That was silenced while early voting was going on, and then polls later on post vote that said they would not have voted a certain way if they would have had access to that information.
Right.
Early voting is bad because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know that Comey's not going to come out a week before the election and say, "Hey, so and so is under investigation."
Right.
I already cast my ballot, man. I was trying to be early. It's dumb. It's a really bad idea. Life continues whether or not you want it to or not.
It's not over until it's over.
No. So that's where I'm at on the early voting portion.
No, I think
anyways.
that makes sense. I think that's very legitimate.
And then, of course, neutralizing voter identification law.
Right. I don't think.
I think we've hammered this one before.
Right. And I think that it's very. We have talked about it before. I don't see a problem with giving everybody a voter ID. Just give everyone a voter ID. Just give it to everybody.
Yeah.
Just give it
to everybody.
to everybody.
I think it's
No-
a hell of a lot
yeah,
more
no
accurate than
cost.
fucking signature
Yeah,
verification.
no cost, no fucking none of that bullshit.
No.
You don't need to remember the numbers. You don't need to, bring your shit or write the number down and get the fuck on. I know if
Yep.
you're going to vote from home, write the fucking number down. I don't give a shit. If you want to make it braille or something and you have to scratch it with a pen, I don't care.
Yep.
Give it to everyone. Don't make it cost anything. Don't make it anything. Show up. If you don't show up, we'll come to your house. We'll take a picture of you. We'll send you a fucking ID in the mail the next day.
Yep.
If I can print a debit card at my bank, why? I swear to God, why can you not print a fucking card out at my house?
Yep.
You can't come to an old person's house who can't drive to the DMV, who is continuously re-registering through the mail, right? Because at least in Washington, after you have your license for a certain amount of time, you can re-register it through the mail or renew it through the mail and just get another one, right? So why, if they've been doing that this whole time, can you not go to their house with the same machine you used to print my debit card that I can buy everything in the world with? I can buy things with the debit card you printed for me. Why can you not print a voter ID in someone's house that same fucking day? The same way that you're going to your ballot harvesting, you are getting people to register for voting, you're doing all this shit. Why can you not do the exact same fucking thing to give me a voter ID?
I have a series of questions to ask you that are going to lead to the exact same answer.
Okay.
So, do you think? Okay, no. What's more important, driving a car or voting?
What's more important?
Yeah,
Voting?
good answer. What do you think is more important, buying alcohol or voting?
Voting.
What do you think is more important, Cannabis or voting?
Voting.
You see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
We have lots of arbitrary things we have decided we have to show ID for that are arguably less important than voting.
And you have to pay for it.
Word.
And you have to pay for it.
Yeah. But, all those underprivileged minorities out there that can't buy booze, can't buy weed, can't drive a car because they can't get a vote. They can't get an ID.
Who can't, it's too complicated
You
to
can't do
figure
it.
out,
Yeah.
what they're, yeah.
And if you believe that for a second, I'm going to go ahead and just say you're racist.
Yeah, and to my knowledge, a vast majority of minority or black people in particular support voter ID.
Word.
So I know this. Yeah.
So if you're insisting otherwise,
minority,
you might wanna look at the mirror.
marginalized communities have a difficult time fucking getting identification. Why?
Yeah.
Are they too fucking stupid? Like,
who
what
loves
you-
to talk about marginalized communities?
It's ridiculous.
Rich white women.
It's ridiculous.
Just saying. Word.
It's fucking super racist. I've
Super racist.
failed to hear one.
Just like our
argument.
governor is.
just like the governor.
Yep. He wants to make sure that the government of Washington State can be as racist as it wants, and you'll understand the coherent reasoning behind this at the end of the month when we release our Patreon posts. When I write my piece about how equity is racist.
That's right. The next portion that we have here is about the lines, the district lines. We talked about that already. Yep. And then the bill provides $6 in public money to campaigns for every $1 in small dollar donations they raise, which is taxpayer dollars, right? So, you're talking about
1 to 6.
You're talking about giving federal representatives and senators taxpayer dollars to run a fucking campaign. What are you doing? What are we talking about?
What we're talking
What
about.
are we talking about?
We're talking about.
We're trying to get rid of dark money, right?
For every $1 you decide to give a candidate, giving them $7 because democracy.
Because I don't know, to help with dark money.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What are you saying?
For every $1? It's
doesn't
the
make
same
any
people.
sense.
It's the same people, except you're pulling money away from people who may not vote for this person, who may not donate to this person, because one person decided to give them 1/6 of the amount that you're going to give them. Word. That seems to make a lot of fucking sense.
If you can't convince people that your ideas are good, you don't belong in office. I don't care about the production value of your ads. I don't care about the dirt you can dig up on the other guy. I don't care. I don't care about that. If your ideas are shit, then get out.
You know who I would love to talk to, but probably can't at this point because he's gotten such a big national thing? Joe Kent. I want to talk about Joe Kent's early campaigning. How did this dude start off? And still, I get notifications from Joe Kent. I don't agree with him on a lot of his policies and things like that.
Shit, yeah.
Word. But for somebody to rise up out of nothing, and the dude's story is fucking tragic.
Absolutely tragic.
I get super teary-eyed whenever he did a thing the other day about the anniversary of his wife's death and the picture of him and his wife and their kids sitting on the couch. And I was like, it's tear-jerking. But you saw this guy. He's doing events with like 15 people.
Yeah.
And then he's doing events with like 20 people and like 25 people. And now he's doing bigger and bigger and bigger events. The fucking cojones on that guy to be able to, in Washington State.
Excuse me.
Because he's not in that red of a district. I mean, it's more red than obviously where we live,
3,
obviously.
I think.
Yeah, it's down a little south, but not much east.
It's
or
still
anything.
on the western
it's still
side.
on the western side. Yeah, it's still green. And
people still
he's
fuck
been
with
able
him.
to rise up like this, man, and
Yeah.
to be able to get the support he can. And he ain't taking any dark money. I can tell you that right now. That dude is about as possible as you can be against that.
And the only thing in here that has to do with dark money is making contributors, making people expose where they're getting their money from. You just have to announce where you're getting your money from. Why? I don't. We can supersede one Supreme Court decision, right, that says that gerrymandering is supposed to be political and it's supposed to be done by the parties, but we can't supersede the other Supreme Court decision that corporations can donate however much money they want and there are citizens and it just doesn't fucking matter, right?
Corporations are people.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
I just don't. This doesn't make any sense. This logic does not hold. They're just throwing things and like, it'll be fine. Why, for what reason should we be giving anybody taxpayer dollars to run a campaign.
That's fucking crazy.
Why?
You know,
I can't even think, like, what is the justification for this?
the only possible justification I can
To
find
incentivize small dollar donations instead of corporate donors?
is something like
Hold my dick. That's stupid.
right. I know, and it doesn't go very far. But there's a little bit of an argument there to say, hey, everybody, like Seattle tried to do this, right? With
the democracy
vouchers,
dollars.
democracy dollars,
Yes.
the voucher programs,
Yes.
right? Corporations are people too. So say
Oh my God,
Supreme
and
Court,
we
Willie
were even
Wallace.
kind of like, yeah, democracy dollars. I fuck with
Right?
that.
But like
But that was fake. That was fake money.
It was. I know.
That wasn't even taxpayer dollars. That was more fake than real dollars.
But the conceptual idea behind it, I can understand, right? But that's in a world where there's no such thing as money.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that it does take dollars to make a commercial. It does take dollars to buy a camera, to make the commercial. I mean, it takes dollars to hire extras. It takes dollars to pay a network to play your fucking commercial. It takes money to do things. It's not as simple as you deciding to give your support in some fiat manner to a specific candidate. Like, it doesn't make any sense, because at the end of the day, there are going to be real world dollars spent on real life shit. Democracy dollars are fake. You get $25, and then it comes out of some pool of fucking bullshit money.
You got to convince other companies to take that fake money.
Word.
But
and either way,
still,
let's say you have a giant pool of money and everybody they have their fucking democracy dollars. You're still taxpayer money.
Right.
It's still public money.
And especially because it is taxpayer money, I am uncomfortable with the idea.
It's not okay.
I'm uncomfortable with it on its face, but I'm further uncomfortable with the idea that I have to incentivize you to not be a corporate shill. I have to incentivize you with my own tax dollars to not be a shill. What are you talking about? Like, why? Then why are you here? If I have to convince you not to shill for corporations, then why are you here? Why are you here? You don't really want to be here because I have to convince you to not be a shill.
Yes.
What do you mean? What do you mean? You're for democracy, though, but I have to convince you with dollars, my own money that you stole from me, to not be a shill? You stole it from me once, and now I have to give it to you a second time? So you
I will
won't
make
be
you a
shill?
deal. I will make you a deal. We'll do essentially the exact same thing, except instead of money, I'm going to give you democracy dollars. And it's not money anymore. Then it's fine, right?
At least it's fake, man.
At
At least then we've all agreed that we're going to come up with a separate fiat currency that's going to be just for elections.
Fuck, at this point, let's just make it a new crypto.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
E-dollars. It's the e-coin. The election coin.
Oh, my God.
We
are
are very
so fucked,
uncomfortable
bro.
that I now have to, like I said, to convince you to not be a shill with my own taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Also, I came up with a thing we're going to do our after segment for. So
Perfect.
Don't worry about that. I have a separate thing.
Now,
that I
what
wrote
is,
down.
before we move on, what is this After Dark
The
segment?
After Dark segment. The
What
After Dark
is
segment
this thing?
It's a special segment that we do after this show that you have to be. It's a Patreon exclusive, right?
It is indeed for a week.
For a week. It is a Patreon exclusive for the first week. It is a topic that we came up with, our question that one of us have that we didn't quite make it into the regular show. Might be a little bit too big to fit into the schedule that we have already, but we still think it's valuable. We still want you to know about it. So we record an extra little segment at the end. It comes out the following Monday in between shows.
Indeed.
Right?
It allows me to take a day off of cutting clips on every other Monday, which is kind of a
Which
fantastic
also
deal.
means that this coming Monday, when this episode drops, last episode's After Dark segment will be open to the public on YouTube.
It's already out now. I put it out last week.
Well,
My bad.
it's open. That's
So, yeah.
okay. In the future, they'll
think that's the
they'll be
good idea,
Patreon
though.
exclusive for 1 week, and then they will be public when the previous episode or the next episode comes
Microphone.
out. So
This is called a miscommunication.
that's okay. No, it's only
it's
now
all
that I
good.
just worked that out. In
And
my
you know
head.
what's
So-
funny is insider baseball talk, real quick. The only reason we're having these little discussions and things like this is because we're offering you guys so much more content than we've ever offered before in the year 2022. And we're just kind of trying to hammer out the last
Holy
release
shit.
schedule Holy
The
shit!
Bengals won.
The
The Bengals fucking won. Jesus Christ. Okay. we're doing a little sports real quick.
Okay, so is this why I saw a tweet the other day of like the last time the Bengals won, or if the Bengals ever win some playoff
That
thing?
was in the wild card round. In the wild card round, they won, which was the first time they had won
the
since
Cincinnati Bengals?
Yes, the Cincinnati Bengals, the first time they won a playoff game, I think, since '91. And the thing that Josh said that nobody had ever texted
That's
that
what it
the
was.
Bengals had won a playoff game because the first text was in '92.
That's right.
Yes. So the Bengals beat the Titans by 3 fucking points. Just
Fucking Josh is from
Ohio.
Ohio, isn't he?
Jesus Christ.
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Ohio.
That's right.
That
Josh is from
insane.
Ohio, right?
That is insane.
That's right.
I don't know.
He's got to be.
That's crazy. But the Bengals are
Are they in the playoffs now?
they just won in the divisional round of the playoffs. They just beat the Titans. They're now going to go to
What?
the conference. They are now going to go to the conference championship, and they're either going to play the Bills or the Chiefs next weekend.
All right, forgive my ignorance. Is the AFC the NFC?
AFC and the NFC. This is
No,
the
what,
AFC.
what are this is the AFC.
Yes.
Okay. Well, fuck me running.
Tonight,
dude.
the 49ers and the Packers play.
Okay.
And then tomorrow, the Rams and the Bucks play in the morning or at noon, and the Bills and the Chiefs play at 3:30. We're going to Jordan's dad's for the Bills-Chiefs game.
Ooh,
Super
hot dog.
excited. We're going to have
Yeah?
pizza. It's going to be awesome.
What kind of pizza?
Toad House pizza.
Toad House pizza's
Toad
fucking
House pizza.
legit.
I haven't had Toad House by 15 years.
Wait, Toad House has been around for 15 years?
It's been
Fuck. I mean,
20 probably.
you know me.
Yeah.
I mean, like Bremerton's a whole
It's
formation.
down the road, legit 5 minutes from my old house. So
Is it still next to the Walmart? Yeah.
Safeway,
Safeway.
next to Safeway.
Yeah. Okay, word. I've been there before. The one right there off of Wheaton Way. Is that
Yeah.
Wheaton Way? Yeah.
That's Toad House is a
Good
cool
shit,
spot,
man.
It's a cool spot,
Yeah,
and they
it's
have
that's
mad beers.
So many beers, dude.
Hella beers.
Good beers too.
Yes,
Mm.
that's been their jam the whole time.
You know what? I hate hipsters so much, but
That's
hipsters
the OG
make really
hipster
good.
joint. Yeah,
Hipsters make really good beer.
yeah. That's
Welcome
the
to
OG
Seattle.
hipster joint, too. So
All right, more voting. More voting. Are we done with voting? I don't think we're done with
believe
voting.
that we're done. No.
Dark
We have to
money.
talk. We have one more section here. We have to talk about the John
Lewis
Voting
Rights
Act, right?
Advancement.
Hr4, right? Hr4 is really directed to help stop voter suppression, right? That's what the whole deal is. So let me ask you this, right? So how common is voter suppression, right? Because in the research that I did last night, while they very well may exist, my research shows mostly talk of voter suppression laws, right? Not actual cases of voter suppression. And if we're talking about voter suppression laws, we're talking about interpretation.
Indeed.
You believe that these will suppress voting rights.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but I did not, again, I'm not saying they don't exist. I did not find registered cases of voter suppression, right? Of like, because intimidation at the polls is illegal right now.
Yep.
Like all these things that they laid out for voter suppression are
illegal.
largely illegal already.
They're all illegal.
So
Yes.
I struggle to understand this, right? Because I saw instances of like, well, you can't, no firearms at the polls. You know, we talked about that already. If you're intimidated by a firearm, I don't know what to tell you. But you can't openly intimidate. And if the concern is, I'm not in favor of this, if the concern is that people are being intimidated at the polls, put a police officer at every poll. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so that way only
So that
only
if
the
someone
state
is
can
being
enforce
harassed,
that.
if they're being suppressed, right, there's a police officer there to arrest that person and see that they are guilty of voter suppression.
Well, they're not guilty until they found guilty by a jury of their peers.
So if
but,
they're suspected of it and they can be arrested, what I'm saying. So they're you
I gotta
understand,
technically, yeah.
but you understand what I'm getting at. I'm not
And
asking the police officers to be the judge, jury,
Yeah.
and executioner. I am saying asking them to do their jobs at the polls. You know
what
where
I-
I'm at with cops.
Do you see
Stop
what I
it.
get for being hyperbolic?
You know where I'm at with cops. Don't play this game with me. You know we're on the
Yes.
same level.
So
If that's the concern, put
yeah,
a fucking
if the
cop there.
concern is,
Put a fucking cop there then.
but if the concern is there, it's unfounded and it's unnecessary.
Certainly. But if the
yeah.
concern is there, then put a fucking cop there. If you're saying it's happening all the time, but for some reason we're not able to catch them, you know, because whatever, I don't know, X, Y, and Z, because it's illegal to do those things already.
Yeah.
So put a fucking cop there to enforce the law then.
And I understand the mentality behind that. But I still think if you are at a point where the federal government is going to pass legislation, you better goddamn prove to me that there's voter suppression going on, and I want specific examples and evidence.
Yes.
I don't want to just say put a cop there and it's going to be fine.
No.
Because you're going to go on this again, and then there's going to be 2 cops. Then it's going to be 3 cops. Then it's going to be a whole goddamn squadron every fucking day with barricades and fucking National Guard and all this nonsense. I don't want to open the door to any of this. No. This is 2021. There's no such thing as voter suppression. The only voter suppression you think is because you're a goddamn snowflake who can't handle any kind of pushback towards your ideals. And when you say that the only way to run a clean election is to make it slightly inconvenient, to make it something that you purposely have to go out and somewhat hassle to do. You have to take time off. You have to go. You have to take a break during your lunch hour. You have to do whatever the fucking deal is that is you're gonna classify as voter suppression. I want documented proof that this is a deal so that we can go after those people that are doing that, because it is fucking illegal. Right. I'm not going to assume that it's still happening today and that we're going to pass some giant omnibus, bill that's going to remove voter suppression, when I don't think voter suppression fucking exists other than the words people say out of their mouths. And if you cannot, I need a more concrete example of what people use as voter suppression. Voter suppression, removing
harsh voter ID requirements, making faulty voter purges more likely.
Okay, again, voter ID is racist, obviously, in their standpoint. Right. So if you believe that any American is incapable of getting an identification, you are racist. Period. Because of their race, if you believe that is the reason they cannot get an ID, you are racist, because you don't understand how the world works. Everybody can get an ID in this state in this nation for free.
So these are some examples of, this is from the BrennanCenter.org, which is a voting rights advocacy group, right? These are examples of restrictive laws. There was one that I had somewhere that was examples of voter suppression, and I'll try and find that more. But
colloquially, I've heard people reducing the number of boxes and changing the hours so that they're only work hours, or that's voter suppression.
Right.
Which I'm like, no, that's just shitty voter law.
Shorten window to apply for a mail-in ballot. Shorten deadline to deliver the mail-in ballot. Make it harder to remain on absentee voting lists. Eliminate or limit sending mail ballot applications to voters who do not specifically request them. That's an example of voter suppression, is making it so you have to request a mail-in ballot. Eliminate or limit sending mail ballots to voters who do not specifically request them. Restrict assistance in returning a voter's mail ballot. Limit the number, location, or availability of mail ballot drop boxes. Impose stricter signature requirements for mail ballots. Impose harsher voter ID requirements. Expand voter purges or risk faulty voter purges. Increase barriers for voters with disabilities. Ban snacks and water to voters waiting in line. Eliminate election day registration. Reduce polling place availability, location, or hours. Increase number of voters per precinct, and limit early voting days or hours.
Okay, so my answer to 90% of those is voter suppression is also known as responsibility of fulfilling your constitutional right to vote.
Voter suppression. Here
you're saying that to fulfill your right to vote, we have to remove any inconvenience from fulfilling that right.
So here's a better. This
and also underneath that logic, you should be able to give me a gun for free, because it's also my constitutional right to have that.
This is a list from the American Progress.org.
American Progress.
I'm specifically finding places that are voter rights so that we know that this is what they are saying is voter suppression. So this
I know every one of these too, which is great, because
this report describes some of the voter suppression measures and other election day problems that potentially kept millions of eligible Americans from participating in the 2018 midterm elections. These include voter registration problems, voter purges, strict voter ID and ballot requirements, voter confusion, voter intimidation and harassment, which is illegal already, poll closures and long lines, malfunctioning voting equipment, disenfranchisement of justice-involved individuals, and gerrymandering. So
So
take it point by point. Gerrymandering, we talked about already. It's
Word.
supposed to be political. It's designed that way. The Supreme Court already found that last year. If you don't agree with that, appeal that decision. I don't know what to tell you.
Word.
Disenfranchisement of just and involved individuals. I don't agree with taking people's right to vote away. If you've served your time, get your rights back, move the fuck on. That's my personal take on the situation.
Okay.
Different take on it?
No.
So, malfunctioning voting equipment. Quit
better.
buying shitty fucking voting machines.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
The answers are states do better.
Stop buying shitty shit.
Yeah.
Poll closures and long lines. I feel that we just talked about that.
Again,
should be
if the
holiday.
states are serious about making their voting day, and if the states are serious about providing a very easy and smooth voting process for their citizens, they should get their shit together and make it so. They run their elections. I don't need the federal government to come in here. The states have the power to do all of this now.
So let's the next one, voter intimidation or harassment, which you talked about, is already illegal,
Yep.
right? Voter confusion, and that's so
Don't
I'm
vote.
trying to. Widespread voter suppression, particularly against historically marginalized groups, is a reoccurring problem in the United States. Each election cycle, untold numbers of eligible Americans are prevented from voting due to barriers in voter registration process, restrictions on casting ballots, and discriminatory and partisan rigged district maps. Voter suppression measures can differ by state and even by individual county, and with some voter suppression measures actively seek to discriminate against certain groups, others result from innocent administrative errors and glitches. Regardless of its form or intent, however, voter suppression is relentlessly effective in preventing voting eligible Americans from contributing to the electoral process.
Exactly. Ask all those Trump voters how that worked out. The very first part of that, they are so close to just saying like minorities and marginalized communities are too stupid to vote, so we need to make it easier for them.
Voter confusion due to administrative error and misinformation. Voter confusion is a problem each election cycle, and with the rise of misinformation, it has only become more prevalent.
Stupid people.
Even well-intentioned groups have inadvertently misinformed people, while others have intentionally sought to confuse voters and prevent them from voting. On Election Day, voters in several states, including Massachusetts, Wisconsin, and New York, received text messages from various groups and organizations that included incorrect information about designated polling locations, which resulted in people going to the wrong polling places to vote only to be turned away. In Kansas, at least one polling place handed out the wrong ballot for a period of time. Meanwhile, in Montana, the Republican National Committee sent an October mailer to registered voters informing them that they could submit absentee ballots postmarked the day before the election, so long as they were received by election officials within 10 days after the election. The mailer contradicted Montana law, however, which requires all ballots to be received by 8 p.m. on Election Day, regardless of when they are postmarked. An RNC spokesperson called the move a mistake and promised to make phone calls and send additional mailers to clarify the error. Also in October, a local election official in Texas told thousands of Prairie View A&M University students who had already registered to vote that they would have to fill out additional paperwork in order to maintain their voter registration status because they had been incorrectly told to register using an address in a different precinct. After significant public outcry, Texas Secretary of State Ronaldo Pablos announced that the additional paperwork was not necessary. Regardless, events such as these create confusion regarding voters and ultimately discourage citizens from participating in elections. Another thing that I want to add to this before you get upset, because I want to make you a little bit more upset first.
Please, please. My blood pressure needs to go up.
Like California, I think, and maybe in New York, they just made it so that non-citizens could vote in local elections.
New York.
On NPR, they were then talking about how this adds to further confusion because now those people are going to have to decide, even they may or may not speak English, they're going to have to decide and figure out and decipher which elections they can and cannot vote in. And
it's real easy. If it's got a D next to it, you check the box.
And the people who work there in those precincts, then they also have to know whether or not those people can vote or not vote in those elections. How about fucking no, bitch? You're not a citizen. Don't fucking vote here. What are you talking about? That's so crazy. You're like, oh, we just added all these problems to our system. Then don't do it.
Yes.
Then don't do it, bitch.
Constitution.
What are you talking about?
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
We are so fucked. I'm so excited.
So those are all examples of voter confusion. People being too fucking stupid and not actually knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And therefore misinformed. People who probably shouldn't be in those jobs anyway because they obviously don't know what the fuck they're talking about are then able to misinform people. And that is called voter suppression.
Yes. Stupid people
Because the
doing stupid
Republicans
shit.
did it.
Yes.
Even though it was Republicans that didn't get to vote.
Republicans
Which I
actually
guess shows their
won,
bipartisan nature.
Republicans actually won the 2020 election for Biden, in my opinion. Just the way the way they structured their state COVID policies, put Joe Biden in the office. So it's their fault, no one else's. You didn't need a bunch of fraud to do that. You just needed a bunch of dumbass Republicans to try to pass voting reform.
So it doesn't sound to me. No, you go ahead. You got stuff to say. You go ahead.
It has been. I have heard this at many points. Right, this realm of discussion is not exactly everybody's cup of tea, right? Which is kind of a shame when you really think about it, because politics is really just another word to cloak how we all decide in society to live our lives, and the basic rules and morals and ethics that we want to live under, so we can all live happily together.
Yeah, I find that everyone says they don't want to talk about politics, but everyone will bitch with you about politics.
Word. Because politics is just the way of life.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. It's politics manifests in how you live and move throughout society. But it has been told to me recently that a lot of, and I don't disagree with this more or less, but a lot of people that decide they want to talk about politics in some informal manner generally just want to convince people that they're better than others, right? And part of that is very true. Like, I believe that if you don't pay attention to politics, colloquially, what we call politics, and these laws that get passed and these representatives that we all elect and the votes that we all participate in, if you're not paying attention to that, and if you're not educating yourselves about that,
Are we better than them?
We are better than them.
I love it.
You know why? It's because we're citizens who care. We're citizens who actively play a role in our representative democracy. We are the ones that participate in how this society is shaped. And if they want to say that we think we are better than them, we fucking are, because we want to participate and they don't. Word. I understand that during the founding, 1776, most people that voted were landowners, were fucking surviving 10 months out of the year, 11 months out of the year, just trying to live and survive. And then they showed up to Washington once a year to say, hey, stay the fuck out of my life. Period. Full stop. Don't care anymore. That was it, man. Like, and if you don't participate in politics, if you are stupid enough to just buy into the bylines of voter suppression, when you have no concept of what a voting booth looks like, when you have no concept of how a piece of legislation that is going to be passed by the person that you decide to vote for because they have a D or an R after their name, if you can't comprehend that, you're an idiot and you shouldn't be voting. If you want to argue about voter suppression, I challenge you to go vote and tell me how fucking suppressed people are. If you believe in this shit, go prove it. Because I guarantee you, most of these people that are arguing about voter suppression, which most of them are just politicos, obviously, they're the ones that have a dog in the fight. I challenge you to go out and vote and tell me how suppressed your local voting booth is. Tell me how suppressed you feel when you get a voter pamphlet in the mail with, first you get the pamphlet, then you get the ballot. How suppressed do you feel? Do you feel suppressed?
Give you a time to read it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's multiple websites available to anybody that has an internet connection. There, voter pamphlets available at, I don't want to say every single. Go to the library.
Yeah.
Voter pamphlets
Post
are there.
offices, stuff
Post
like that.
offices.
Yeah.
Government facilities. You can get one. That simple. Make a phone call to your local representative. They can get you something. There's no fucking suppression here. It is a narrative built by a group of people who want you to think that our way of life is in danger, when they are the ones that are endangering our way of life. So there is no voter suppression. As far as I can see, there are individual cases, obviously, because there are individual cases of voter fraud.
Right.
Voter fraud did not win Biden the election. No, Trump won Biden the election because he's a fucking loudmouth who can't keep his mouth shut. Trump lost Georgia for the Republicans because he's a fucking idiot who got out there and decided to tell everybody not to vote in Georgia because it's rigged. That's voter suppression. It's idiots shooting off at the mouth and then other idiots listening to them and believing that when all they got to do is show up to the polls and vote. That's all they had to do. Done. There's no fucking 50-50 split in the Senate at that point if Trump didn't shoot his mouth off. Voter suppression is a concept of how little responsibility should be required to participate in the civic duty of voting. That's all. If there's any responsibility required, if there's any effort required, it's voter suppression. And we all know, I think anybody with fucking 2 brain cells that can rub them together know that that's bullshit and it's a lie. Get out, vote, tell me how suppressed you were. Across the nation. If you were suppressed, let's hear about it. I want to hear some stories. During the midterms, I want to see flooding into the to New York Times, to Washington Post, to the New York Post. Send it to the Washington Examiner. Send it to the right-wing places. Guys, I'm being suppressed at the polls. I'm being suppressed at the polls.
Take pictures. Take a video.
Something. Throw somebody in jail. For fuck's sakes, take some evidence. Give me some evidence. Let's do this. Otherwise, this is just
you're arguing
politicking.
You're arguing over snacks and water.
Yeah, you're arguing over snacks and water. That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you're in a voting district that needs snacks and water because your voting lines are so long,
your problem is not voter suppression.
No, your problem is the people you voted for already.
Yeah.
Because they're making it that way. Because they're running a bad state. They're running a bad township. They're running a bad county. That's why. It's not the big baddie federal government that's doing all this. They shouldn't have anything to do with this at all.
They will not solve this issue.
No, they're just going to make it worse.
They cannot solve this problem.
Nope. They're not going to solve the problem.
I definitely, without going too far, the mentality of it concerns me because it continues to lend towards the ideology that the federal government will solve all of our problems. You know, and we talked about that last week when we talked about like Crystal Ball a little bit, you know, that her inability to be objective because she's so strung to that core value of, well, a strong central government will solve this problem. You know, the government can do this, and the rich are the problem. The elites are the problem, right? If
it's religious
do this,
in nature.
We just saw the study came out last week, right, of how many different federal representatives and senators beat the S&P 500 last year by how many millions of dollars?
Most.
But we're saying that Elon Musk is the problem. Yeah. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are the problem when we have federal representation who are worth millions and millions of dollars. When that is not a problem to you. Elon Musk, who started his company, you can talk about PayPal, Ruby Mines, whatever the fuck you want to talk about, right?
Mines.
Oh, there are people who say that like his dad owns a Ruby mine or something like that in South Africa, and that's where he got his money from. You know?
The Elon Trump connection.
I have no idea. Yeah. I don't care if he got his start with his dad's Ruby mine money. I don't give a fuck, right? Nancy Pelosi has been a representative for dozens of years, and her family is worth $230 million. Why?
How did she become rich? She got rich.
Where did your money come from?
Money. She invested your money and decided to enrich herself.
Her husband did.
Well,
so it's
she can't directly do it.
Her husband did. So it's okay.
Well, and that's just her too, which is the sad part because it's like you said,
it's
the
Dan
list
Crenshaw,
coming.
It's everybody.
Exactly.
It's
all
Republicans and
of
Democrats, as we have said before.
Eat the rich. AOC, I'm on your side now.
Don't give a fuck about you.
No.
Every major institution hates you and wants you to die. These people do not care about you.
Nope.
It doesn't matter if you are talking about, like we said, fucking Dan Crenshaw, who's at the top of that list, or Nancy Pelosi, who is the number 1 on the list.
Yeah. Dan Crenshaw is the new John McCain.
Do not care about you.
Nope.
They hate you and want you to die. All you are is a problem. You are a number and an opposition to the problem, to the solution. That's it. It's just a problem. They do not give a fuck about you. They want to. They talk on Breaking Points all the time about the investment group that literally just mirrors Nancy Pelosi's husband's investments and has made fucking thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, mirroring Nancy Pelosi's husband's investments. What are we talking about? What do you mean?
You look them up on Reddit. They're really great.
This doesn't make any sense. These people do not care about you, and they're trying to continue to centralize power.
Yeah.
They want you to have less and less control, and they want more and more. Over the last 2 years, we saw the largest centralization of power that we have ever seen in the history of this country. We also saw the largest upward transfer of wealth in the history of this country. These people do not give a fuck about you, right? Our very next topic is a whole list of ways that the federal administration and their surrounding cronies are actively working to divide this country. These people do not care about you. To cede any more control over your life, your political actions, your anything to these people is a mistake. Do not support these people. Get these people out of office. This is not the solution. We need to decentralize, delegitimize, and focus on our communities. The federal government will not solve these problems. They are not able. They do not have the capability to solve this problem. The very next topic. I have a horrible admin preaches unity while gaslighting and dividing the entire country.
This
right?
is going to be my favorite
This is
segment.
a subtopic, right?
I thought this was going to be my favorite, and I think I accidentally had voting so far as my favorite.
So the first one I have here is the push to eliminate the filibuster, right?
Yes.
Especially after the failed attempt at voting rights. We just talked about there, the
Friday.
voting rights bills, right? So we just talked about this. The filibuster is the last even remnants of Republican ideology, and not small R Republican, not big R Republican, not the political party, but Republicanism of the idea of being a republic, right? To strip the filibuster from the Senate is a horrible, horrible mistake that incentivizes pure democracy that will continue us down the path of destruction. This is not a good idea. I understand the frustration with deadlock. I understand the frustration with things not happening the way that you want them to. But the idea that, well, our mostly partisan appeals haven't worked, so we need to completely abandon bipartisanship and just push all the way to the left or all the way to the right. The idea that that is the solution is insanity to me.
I wanted to ask, just because it is so commonly in the realm of politics, in our realm, in this world, there's these terms like filibuster, right? What is a filibuster to the layman?
The filibuster, so the act of filibustering, right,
Yeah.
is to speak on the floor and take all of the time of debate that there is, so there cannot be a vote on something, right? And you have to have 60 votes to stop someone from filibustering and create a motion, introduce a motion to move to the floor, or to move that bill to the floor for a vote. Sorry, I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
So
it allows a
senator or
minority of
representative,
people to stop
block legislation.
to block legislation, to block movement in a legislative fashion.
Yes.
If there aren't 60% majority.
Yeah.
You know, and if 60% of a House or the Senate decide that no, we need to look at this, we need to vote on it, no filibuster is allowed. You can't push this off.
Right.
Right.
And
the
filibuster
filibuster
has
does
been-
take time. It
Yeah.
does take a lot of time because you do have to. There are speaking.
The longest one I think is
filibusters.
25 hours.
Yeah, and there are non-speaking filibusters too, where you
Yes.
just everybody comes out and says, "We're not going to vote for this." Sorry, you can't. do
Nancy
it."
Pelosi
Period.
did like a 16-hour one or some shit just a few years
Yeah.
ago. She went for a crazy amount of
Skeletor.
time. Yeah, it was.
Do you think Joe Biden can pull off one right now?
No, I don't know how she did it. I don't know how you do it. You don't pee your pants.
I don't know
how
either.
anybody does that. You don't pee their pants.
That's the other thing too. I don't
How
understand
do
how
you
they
not
do
piss
that.
for 25 hours? What
That's
are you talking about?
That's a long time.
That's one of the guys during the Civil Rights Act. They filibuster for 25 hours. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
You know, did someone come? Like, did you?
Somebody's got to
someone
come
has
up and
gotta-
tap out.
I did.
You
No,
got
it's
to.
because you have to talk the whole time. So I got to imagine someone went in there, held his dick, and like for him to pee. I don't know how else you do it.
jar on the other side of the lectern.
That's what I mean.
How you do it.
Someone literally just comes and holds it for you, or you piss there and you just don't say anything about it. Like,
somebody bring me the bucket.
yeah, I don't know
gotta
how
pee.
you do that. I'm sure there's a story about it somewhere. I don't know the story of it, but I don't know how else you do that and you don't, because you can't break. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Is talk the whole time.
So as far as filibuster goes,
Filibuster.
the filibuster.
So
is
now
just,
it's
the last bastion of small r republicanism. It's the last way to protect minority rights.
And it's only for legislation. It's been slowly stripped out of different portions of the process. Like I believe for Senate confirmations and things like that, it's already been stripped away. For Supreme Court confirmations, it's already been stripped away, I believe.
The earliest one I can remember was when Hr1 and the Democrats invoked the quote-unquote nuclear option.
That's what it's called every time.
Yeah, that's what they call it now. Because once you take that rule away,
it's gone forever.
It's gone forever. And now, if you're in the majority, and you get rid of the filibuster for the minority so that you can get your way, the other shoe's gonna. I don't know the idiom I'm trying to go for, but it's gonna come back around to haunt you when all of a sudden you're the minority and the opposing people are the majority. Because the problem with democracy, right? The problem with democracy is that 51 people can overthrow the views of the 49. It only takes one person. It only takes one slim majority. I mean, the Senate is that way right now. We have 50-50 split in the Senate. The only reason Democrats get anything is because Kamala Harris can come in there and be a tiebreaker.
Right.
But republicanism, small r, protects the rights of a minority view.
Yes.
It's the only way to do that. Otherwise, minority views get trampled and democracy rules. Mob rule.
And to speak to that swing you were talking about, Republicans are the ones that eliminated the filibuster for Supreme Court nominations, right? Now that they're not in control of either houses, should something happen to the Supreme Court over the next 2 years, or I guess next few months, right?
Yeah.
They then decide, the Democrats will then have full control over who goes into the Supreme Court, not only because Joe Biden selects them, but because then the House and the Senate will push them through. And that filibuster is already gone.
Just trying to think, who's the oldest member of SCOTUS right now? Curious.
I don't know.
I
Roberts?
am curious. It's got to be... It might be Roberts.
Clarence Thomas? Clarence
He's
Thomas
up there.
is pretty old.
What is this? This is some shit about RBJ. Who cares? RBG. Current members. I need a time. 55, 48, 38. Hot dog. 51, 54, 67. I'm just going through all the dates they were born. 60, 62. Amy Coney Barrett, born in 72. Damn. 30.
1930?
Retired. Sorry.
Oh.
That's Justice O'Connor retired. Yeah, okay. So now we're into the retired justices. So it looks like Justice Breyer, the Associate Justice, 1938.
Good God.
That's when he was born.
Oh, God.
And he was born in San Francisco.
Oh, it's too much.
The San Francisco of 1938, bro.
Okay.
What did that look like?
Way better than it does now.
1938, 2021.
Probably still less
2022,
human shit on the streets.
80 plus. He's in his 80s.
So
Mid-80s.
the next one we talked about a little bit already. Inslee repeals affirmative action in the name of equity.
Yep.
Right? So we talked about it already.
He's racist.
Don't agree with these things. And as a reminder, all these things are being brought up in ways that divide this country in a way that I don't see an easy solution to, right? If you're willing to take away people's right to equality in the name of equity so that you can continue to, or not continue to, but, excuse me, so that you can marginalize people and you can do whatever you want, right? If you can be prejudiced in the name of equity.
Yes. If you can be prejudiced towards white people because there's too many of
or
you.
Asians because they're too
there's
smart.
too many of you, Harvard, then you are discriminating.
And that's that's
Like,
fine.
I don't understand. I don't understand why you can't just call a spade here. If this is your problem, stand by it and say it. And if it's not your problem and there's something else, you should probably say that.
You want to discriminate in favor of people in groups that you want to look out for, and that's fine. But like you said, you you should say that.
Yeah,
You know,
just say that.
because it's not.
And I'm
we're
going to judge you accordingly.
Like, oh, you only care because it's white people. It's not just white people anymore, right? We're talking about with Asians already. They're included now. Asians are white people now. They don't matter anymore. If you're especially
Jewish
talking
people,
about school,
Asian
it doesn't
people.
matter. Jewish people, it doesn't matter anymore. You
Anybody
know,
that's straight.
white women, a lot of black men, right? I've heard
Yeah.
the example I've heard consistently over the last few weeks when. For some reason, when talking about like intersectionality, is talking about I think this is the example used in like the paper that presented intersectionality was if you have a factory where most of the production workers are black men and most of the office workers are white women, you're hitting both categories. You have women working and black people working, but black women are going to be left out of this almost intentionally because you are not required to hire them because you're only required to have women and required to have black people there.
Yep. So you have to look at I remember that.
So you
that
have
was,
to appeal to the intersectional aspect of it, and that's where this gets left out. Equality doesn't go far enough because just because you have black people there and just because you have women there doesn't mean you're really being inclusive to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? That's crazy. That's crazy. That's to assume that people are going to be like, I only want to hit the metrics. I'm only going to hire as many black people as I have to.
That's just
and
what the
I'm
government
only
does.
going to hire as many white people as I have, or as many women as I have to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to cut it off right there, and I'm going to walk away.
And see that argument right there, it was kind of an argument against, say, affirmative action, right? It shouldn't be about numbers and quotas. It should be about content of character and who this person is. So removing, that's why like fucking 10 years ago, if you would have said, let's remove affirmative action, I would have been like, word, let's do it. But that was when the government wasn't as discriminatory as they are today. You know, racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobic, the whole 9 yards. If that's back before the government was, but now that we are, like, you need those protections again. It's kind of like you need a new civil rights law again, or you just enforce the laws that we already have. But it's a problem because there is a segment of the population that think this is a really good idea. And the people that are stopping to think about it for a while and saying, no, this is really bad. You can't discriminate against anybody, man. You're being split. The country's being split, just like we're talking about. And it's because there's a certain segment of the population that believes that discrimination, that believe that no matter how you get there, a balance must be achieved. No matter how you get there.
Even if you got to discriminate to do it. It's
especially
almost like,
when you have to, because of the evil that those larger numbers have used to get to where they're at. Then it's okay. Then it's fine because they're bad anyways.
Yeah.
It's all historic evil that must be, it's a historic wrong that must be righted.
You must repent.
Indeed.
It's almost like whatever you want to classify that as civil rights or whatever was like, it's on its natural bell curve, you know? And it's at affirmative action and it's maybe resting there, starts to go back, and Janesley just says, fucking schwack, bitch. The only, no, you thought that nothing mattered. The only thing that matters is is the qualities you can't control. That's the
right.
only thing that matters is your identity.
Yep. Fuck the
you.
content of your character.
It's the only thing that matters.
Oh, man. And that, top of everything, right? And it wasn't just Inslee that did this, but
oh no, he's just the one here.
He was the one here, right? And so it made it really easy. But everybody on MLK Day, everybody pushed this fucking concept that there are two sides and there's a right and a wrong, right? And somehow the vocabulary being used in what is considered the right way, the right side of history, is completely counter to what MLK was talking about
Yes.
at the time.
Yes.
And so it was definitely appropriate to be talking about how MLK's vision and his speeches and the whole I have a dream, treat people by the content of the character, not by the color of the skin. It is so ironic that on the day that we celebrate that man and the message and the movement and the civil rights that were gained by that movement can be totally shit on in 2022. And that is now considered the good guy.
And championed.
You're the good guys now. We're the
Yes.
good guys because we're pushing a message that is completely contrary to MLK.
Yes.
That's where we're at.
So
That's the split right there, dude. That's the split. So MLK Day made it very, very evident to me. Go, oh, there's two groups of people now. Here we go. I mean, we knew there was two groups of people.
Well, when Joe Biden sat at whatever press conference that was, and you're either for this or you're for this.
Yeah.
And then at his following press conference, he says, I'm not saying that you're either racist or you're not. I'm saying the choices that you make lean in one direction or the other.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're racist. I'm just saying your thoughts are only considered by racists. And that's...
Like, what are you talking about?
And I mean, I've been black-pilled for a long time. And the split, we've talked about it for a very long time. The split in society, the split in media, the split in everywhere has been so evident. It's just... MLK Day was one of those days where it's so ironic that you look at it on the particular day and you go, what the fuck happened here, man? We were fine. We were doing all right, man.
We were this close, man. We were that
so close.
We were doing it, man. All right, so the next one I have here, dividing the country.
Yes.
The FBI establishes a domestic terror task force, right, to investigate domestic violent extremists. And
is this the teachers at the PTA meetings?
No, but this is also to remind you that some parents can be monitored and considered domestic terrorists because of the way they conduct themselves at these meetings. Yeah. Even though, what's his name? Merrick Garland said they weren't going to, and then in his private correspondence they were going to.
Yeah.
So,
Can you explain to me why you're saying you're not going to now, but you said a week ago that you were going to? Like in a memo,
we're just going to investigate them with the full force of the Patriot Act. That's insane. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
So the next one,
I have no thoughts on that.
No, I can't. The Rasmussen poll shows how some Democrats feel about the unvaccinated, right? I have this if you want me to send it to you. But this is the poll that talks about...
It was, a bunch of people think that, like... I've heard this statistic, this poll used a lot over the last couple of weeks.
COVID-19. Democratic voters support harsh measures against unvaccinated. So let's try and get to some numbers here. A new Heartland Institute Rasmussen report, national telephone and online survey finds that 48% of voters favor President Joe Biden's plan to impose a COVID-19 vaccine mandate on the employees of large companies and government agencies. That includes 33% who strongly favor the mandate, 48% who are opposed to Biden's vaccine, and 40% who strongly oppose the mandate. Voters are similarly divided over the federal government's top COVID-19 expert, Fauci. 45% view Fauci favorably, 28% a very favorable impression of him, 48% an unfavorable impression, and 34% who have a very unfavorable impression. Let's see. Even split amongst deep partisan. While 78% of Democratic voters support the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccination plan, only 22% of Republicans and 41% of voters not affiliated with either major party support the vaccine mandate, which has been crushed in the Supreme Court, by the way. Yes. The OSHA mandate and I believe the federal worker mandate has also been crushed.
I think that was yesterday.
Yep. So
it's good news all around.
We will keep going.
That means we get to be like the UK, right? And then like everybody gets to be free again?
Maybe. After 2 excruciatingly long years, likely voters are beginning to question the federal government's handling of the pandemic. First and foremost, likely voters are beginning to sour on Dr. Anthony Fauci, who seems to have lost credibility after countless flip-flops. So let's see.
He's lost credibility since the 80s. If anybody's been paying attention. Which, again, we're better than you.
Okay, so here's the real meat of it, right? The survey found that 75% of likely Democratic voters, but only 21% of Republicans and 38% of unaffiliated have a favorable opinion of Dr. Fauci. 58% of voters would oppose a proposal for federal or state governments to fine Americans who choose to not get vaccinated. However, 55% of Democratic voters would support such a proposal, compared to just 19% of Republicans and 25% of unaffiliated. So that is 55% of Democratic voters would oppose a proposal for federal state governments to fine Americans who choose not to get COVID-19 vaccine. So that's 45% of voters who would be in favor of it.
Of you getting fined.
Of you being fined for not getting vaccinated.
Yep.
59% of Democratic voters would favor a government policy requiring that citizens remain confined to their homes at all times, except for emergencies, if they refuse to get a COVID-19 vaccine.
59% of Democratic voters polled
Yes.
think that
Would
you should
favor.
be locked up in your house if you're not vaccinated unless you have a medical emergency.
Yes. Such proposal is opposed by 61% of all likely voters, which is, I guess, good
Yep,
to hear,
50 yeah.
including 79% of Republicans and 71% of unaffiliated voters.
Oh, that's good, I guess.
Nearly half, 48% of Democratic voters think federal and state governments should be able to fine or imprison individuals who publicly question the efficacy of existing COVID-19 vaccines on social media, television, radio, or in online or digital productions.
What was the percentage?
48% believe that you should be able to be fined or imprisoned
Yeah.
if you publicly question the efficacy of existing COVID-19 vaccines on social media, television, radio, or in online or digital publications.
We are screwed, my dude.
Um,
If there's, I mean, polls are a thing, right? So it's important to remember that
this is the people
polls
that would
are
answer
polls,
the poll.
right? You know, whoever's getting polled. Again, I've never been polled. I've never been polled. Never seen an online poll for one of these things ever, right? Never been called, no nothing. So whoever's getting polled, and then however way those people deem they should respond in a poll, whether or not they should. Whether or not they respond truthfully is who knows, right? So polls are polls. And if there's anything that we should all remember about the last, we'll go ahead and say 4 years,
The polls are dog shit.
polls are dog shit. They certainly could be dog shit. The polls are only a good reflection of society's take if society is being honest with themselves. And these days, nobody knows up from down half the time, so they can't be honest with themselves if they don't know if they're ensconced in the media and social media bubble that they put themselves in.
Yeah.
They're not going to think they're wrong. Why would they? There's no ability for an outside perspective to get input. So it doesn't surprise me to see this, but it certainly adds to the split, to the divide.
Let's continue. 45% of Democrats would favor governments requiring citizens to temporarily live in designated facilities or locations if they refuse to get a COVID-19 vaccine. That is to say that just under half of the Democratic voters that were polled would be in favor of you temporarily living in a designated facility or location if you refuse to get a COVID-19 vaccine, which would be both of us.
Yes, it certainly would be. I'm just trying to find like a quippy remark. Can we have a quarantine facility in Florida where the weather's nice and we can just go on vacation for 2 weeks at a time? I'd be okay with that. Hey, everybody, mandatory vacation for 2 weeks if you're not vaccinated. Word. I'll be back.
Such a policy would be opposed by a strong majority. 71% of all voters
Would oppose it.
would oppose it, but half of the Democrats would be in favor of it.
So it's obviously a minority viewpoint, according to this poll anyways.
While about 2/3 of likely voters would be against governments using digital devices to track unvaccinated people to ensure that they are quarantined or socially distancing from others, 47% of Democrats favor a government tracking program for those who won't get the COVID-19 vaccine.
I can't. You
47%.
distrust your fellow citizens that much. If it's so bad, what are you doing here? Like, I don't want to be that guy, but what the fuck are you doing here? If you think that 75%, I don't know what's going through somebody's mind that believes that. That's insane.
Let's go farther.
Yeah. Oh, great. Let's
How
go deeper
far
down the
are
rabbit hole.
Democrats willing to go in punishing the unvaccinated? 29% of Democratic voters would support temporarily removing parents' custody of their children if parents refuse to take the COVID-19 vaccine. 30% of the people they polled will be willing to have your children removed from your custody if you don't get the COVID vaccine.
And that's not to argue the science behind it at all.
The efficacy of the vaccine.
We're not. No.
Lest we be
regardless,
imprisoned.
right? Lest we be imprisoned. This is a third. 30% is 3.3% away from being a third. That's a lot of people, bro. You tell me we're not on the road to something. I don't know. Even if it's a third of Democratic voters, right? I mean, we looked at the split earlier between Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. I mean, they're most of the voting base is Democrats. Yeah. I don't. The further we talk about this, the deeper we go down the hole. The divide gets deeper. The Marianas Trench continues to divide, and I don't know what to do about that.
Well, I got one more for you. Let me throw this at you.
What? Does it stop? Does the list stop?
One more on this list. The Rasmussen poll is over. One more on this list,
let's
right?
do it.
And the last thing I have here is the treatment of the January 6th rioters versus the George Floyd rioters, right? And this is...
okay. This is
I
interesting.
want to frame it with this a little bit, right? And this is after I messaged you about this. The NPR journalist claiming that the need for the January 6th narrative, and I'm saying narrative, that's not what they said, but I'm saying narrative because I can't remember the exact words that they used. But the need for the January 6th narrative was greater than the need for traditional journalistic practices like objectivity, right? Especially because objectivity is akin to whiteness. And objectivity is akin to whiteness because traditionally trans journalists, black journalists, Hispanic journalists, anybody who's of a marginalized community is not regarded as objective because white people don't think they can separate themselves from whatever their oppression is to report something accurately. So when people are talking about people being objective, they're really talking about you being white.
Yeah, because you can't be objective if you're a minority of any type.
So this reporter was applauding the journalists of now for doing as good of a job as they have reporting on the big lie and January 6th while being constrained by traditional journalistic practices because corporate journalism is so objective, right?
And by the way, corporate journalism is one thing above all. Very, very white. Just saying. Check out the bylines on the articles that are calling white people racist. They're generally written by white people.
So weird.
So weird. I'm so glad that these white folks understand how minorities think and that these cisgendered straight folks understand how trans people feel and feel very comfortable telling other people how they should feel about trans folks and minorities.
Yeah.
It's really, really comforting to know that our journalistic betters have this under control.
And we talked about January 6th, the last episode, right?
Yeah.
And it was the January 6th riots because it was a riot. It wasn't an insurrection. We talked about this.
Yeah.
There wasn't
It's a
any of
riot.
that shit. And so
Who is Ray Epps?
Considering that, and I didn't want to get into that this time because
I know.
I wasn't able to research it more, but we're definitely going to talk about it next time.
When and if you ever get into Atlas Shrugged, people saying, who is Ray Epps will make a little bit more sense.
I was
to you.
going to read it this year, and then I started the book club thing.
It's a fucking big one.
It's 1,000 pages. So I'm going to rack the book club. I'll read Ayn Rand next year, and then I'll be good to go.
That's right.
Yeah. I gotta read all these books to warm up for that. And then I'll be ready to recommit to another. John Adams was like, it was a commitment.
It was impressive, is what it was.
And it was only 650 pages. So
Only.
Atlas
This is
Shrugged is
only.
like 1,100, just under 1,100.
I don't
So
think I own a book that's that long.
I'm definitely very proud of myself for having done that. Like it was a commitment,
Yeah.
it was an effort. I just read almost
I'm
a
fucking
700
proud of
page
you
book.
for hammering that out.
So in 3 months, I think I started in November. So I read it in 3 months, having a kid, working 50
It
hours a
ain't been
week,
that
doing
long.
this. Like I
You
feel
have
pretty
not
good
been
about-
you have not been chilling for John Adams that long.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about how quickly I read that book, considering everything else that I do.
And I think you should be, to be perfectly honest.
Neither
You
here nor
deserve
there.
that.
So we talked about the fact that January 6th was a riot, the Capitol riot. So we've called it since it happened, right? It's the Capitol riots, January 6th riots, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
George Floyd's riots, the same thing, right? And we talk about the comparison as far as them being
talked about
riots,
it, yeah. Riots.
I just mean as far as them being riots, right? So
Check.
the comparison, you can even use a more finite description of the George Floyd riots that happened in the Capitol that almost burned down the church right across from the White House, right? But those were the same thing, except one caused much more destruction than the other one. So isn't that interesting, right? And it definitely wasn't the January 6th riots that caused more damage.
I would say I'd be really
Isn't
curious
that
to see the
interesting?
dollar amount.
Yeah.
I bet it wouldn't be that close.
No. So
Did anybody die in those? Did this state murder anybody?
No.
Only in
In
January
the second
6th.
one. Yeah,
Sorry,
only in
my
the
bad,
second
my
one.
bad.
Right.
Forgot about that.
And then for some reason, the Democrats still claim, so violent, all this stuff that all these people died.
Yeah, I don't.
It's really weird.
It's super strange.
So when you compare even just those two directly, right? Not those two directly because it's larger than that. This point is larger than that. You have Kamala Harris, who is paying to bail people out of jail, and people who are being found guilty of trespassing on January 6th are still in jail in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
The sitting vice president, was running for president at the time, right?
As a senator.
Was bailing violent rioters out of jail. And now the rioters from January 6th are in solitary confinement until they can be found guilty of trespassing after the Capitol Police let them into the Capitol building.
I'm trying to think of another example of a current like rioters that get released from prison while January 6th rioters are still in jail, because it's the same deal. It's just depending on what it is that you did. If you're out there rioting on behalf of a leftist cause, you are not going to jail in a major city. If you do that shit in the suburbs, you're going away and not coming back out.
Well, okay, so let's talk about, what's his name? Fucking QAnon shaman? Right?
QAnon
that
shaman.
guy got like 30 months in prison.
He's also insane.
That's fine.
He
There
should
are
go to
lots
a
of crazy
hospital.
people who fucking attack the federal building in Portland.
That's
right?
what I'm saying. He should go to a hospital,
That's what I'm
not
saying.
be
So
in jail.
my larger point is that guy's going to be in prison for 30 months, right? We saw what because he's one of the most televised people of that whole day.
Yeah.
We saw that he wasn't violent. He said a lot of crazy shit.
Yep.
He went into
And he
the
walked
Senate chamber.
around.
So he's going to be in prison for 30 months, right? There are people, violent criminals who are being bailed out of jail by Kamala Harris, while QAnon shaman, a fucking crazy person,
But the message,
is now
Donovan,
in prison.
But the message,
You're right.
The QAnon shaman attacked the Capitol.
It's just like in New York.
The leftists only firebombed a
Federal
courthouse,
building.
a federal
courthouse.
courthouse.
David Dorn was only shot in the fucking face trying to protect a building. It's no big deal.
No big deal.
Black police officer. It's no big deal. It's just
No
shot in the
big
fucking
deal.
face. No problem. People were just fucking beat senseless with boards outside of their buildings.
Yes.
It's no big deal. It's not a
Bricks
problem.
thrown into windows.
Yep. Ashley Babbitt was shot in cold no, not shot in cold blood. I want to be accurate. She was
Yep.
shot by a federal agent, by a federal police officer in the Capitol building.
Yep. Who, by the way, could not confirm his shot placement nor
justice.
where his bullet was going to end. There was another police officer right behind him, by the way. Right behind Ashley Babbitt, anyways. We saw that in the videos. You remember that? It's just...
These people don't care about you.
Yeah.
They do not care.
They do not care about you. Every major institution hates you and wants you to die. I mean, I cannot think of another way to put it at this point, other than the fact that if every major institution hates you and wants you to die unless you're on their team. That's what it is.
Yep.
That's truly what it is. There's that last little byline there. It's not everybody, because they still need a tax base to collect money on and to reinvest into the stock market so they can get rich while you pay them. But everyone else can literally die in the fire.
When I was at beers with the guys from work, and I told you I
you got them. You got them all.
I presented that, and Noah said to me, he said,
I was like, you're crazy.
Noah said, why do you say that? And I said, you got 4 kids, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, so when you die, they got 4 kids that are going to take your place. What do they need you for? So you just made 4 children that are going to do the same thing that you're doing 4 times as much.
They can wait.
Yeah. Why?
They can wait for them to get old enough.
They don't care.
Nope.
And Tyler said, he said, I don't know if they want you to die. He said, but they definitely don't care whether or not you live. And I said, for the purposes of this conversation, I would make that concession.
Yeah.
That they may not want you to die,
but they don't care.
They do not care if you live or die.
They are very indifferent towards you being here tomorrow.
Yep. 1,000% indifferent. And that's
unless,
Shane,
of course, you die by gun violence, then they want you to die because they can use you.
Yep. And that's Shane, whose wife is a teacher, right? She's part of that system. He said, you don't mean like the people who work there. And I said, no. I said, absolutely not. I said, there's the people who work in the government don't want you to die. So very few of them want you to die.
No.
So because, I said, in all likelihood, they care about who you are as a person because you're a person. You're an American citizen. It's like my mom works for the state. She doesn't want you to die.
No, she wants everybody to do
wants
better.
You to have a good life because she
wants to help you.
She cares about people. That's
the fucked up thing about
structure
government.
she works for doesn't care about you or her.
You want to talk about structural
Doesn't care about
racism? How about structural murder?
Yeah, the system she works for doesn't care about her or me or you.
No.
Doesn't care about anybody.
Nope.
The teachers who work in the schools, the vast majority, give a shit about your kids. The vast majority of them actually give a fuck about your kids. The structure they work for doesn't give a fuck about your kid.
Nope.
They
They're just a
want
number.
to twist their mind. They want to use them for their own purposes. Some of the teachers who work there, they're involved in Marxist ideologies, want to corrupt who they are so you can use them for their own purposes in the future. That system does not care about you. They hate you and want you to die because then they can control your child.
Yes. And God, what was it? It was on Commentary this week. Commentary magazine. Yeah, it was definitely Commentary magazine where they were referring to someone else that I guess it's kind of an older paper. I wish I remember who the person was. Oh, it's gonna drive me crazy. But anyway, they were saying essentially that like your children at school, we as a society, I should say, need to get over the fact that your children belong to you, right? Your children belong to society. And so society should deem what is and is not okay for your
They
children.
said that or someone else said that?
No. They were referring to, some
Okay.
crazy essay.
Fucking leftist. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the ideology running the school unions for sure right now that these kids are not your kids. The only time the kids are your kids is when there's a problem for the state coming from your kid. Then it's your problem to handle. But other than that, you shouldn't have them. There shouldn't be your kids. They should be the state's kids. They should be society's kids, so that we can make them ready for the next generation to better society. They're not your kids, bro. They're our kids.
When they let someone else rape your daughter, then she's your daughter. But only then.
Only then. Damn. Go there. That was good. Virginia. That's how you do that.
And that's the last point that I had here for the different ways the administration is dividing this country.
Other than the numerous times Joe Biden has just gone on national television and said, if you don't get vaccinated, you're a bad person. And everyone else is good.
That when he stood there and he said,
right.
we've been patient for long enough and our patience is wearing thin. I have never heard so many collective sounds of AR magazine bolt releases or AR bolt releases in my entire life. I've never heard so many bolt releases in my entire life.
Come and take them.
Fuck you.
It's a bad situation, brother.
Yeah.
Bad situation.
Do you have anything else that you want to hit before we move on?
I did want to tell you that it is time for us to do what we have been doing. And that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree that there are things and tools that are available to us to slow this thing down.
That is inspiration.
I just wanted to remind everybody that is what our beloved Vice President Kamala Harris said on national television. Was it last week?
Last week.
When we're talking about coronavirus and Omicron. I had to work that into the show somehow. I just wanted to plug it in for some reason. It's really good. It's really good to text to people at random times because they're like, what does this mean? You're like, oh, that's from our vice president. Sorry.
It's awesome.
I didn't mean to accidentally send that to you. There are so many things we could go down the road with the divide. I don't think we want to talk about the press conference because I don't know if you've had 2 hours to devote to that.
I haven't
yet,
been able to rewatch
and
it.
I haven't either. I've watched bits and pieces. I've seen the clips. I know what was said. Maybe we'll fuck around with it in the After Dark a little bit, but I just don't feel prepared to talk about it. I think at this point it's pretty evident that this may be one of the worst presidential speeches of all time.
This is really bad.
Because it was really bad. But I just don't feel like we... Unfortunately, he's got terrible timing with our podcast. It's always like every time Joe Biden has like a major debate, we're like a week off.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's like, this piece of shit needs to get on our schedule because this is ridiculous. So maybe we'll get into some of that stuff. But there's a lot of that divide fomented in that latest press conference.
I have to go pee.
Okay.
And then
What are we talking about next?
That's
I'll
all
start.
that I have. Sports was the last thing I have. So if you have
Sports.
something else that you want to hit, then you can riff on that for a second, and I'll
Okay.
throw my thoughts in, and then
I'll think
finish
about
off
something.
with sports. And
Either
then
that
we'll
or I'll
do
just talk about the podcast.
whatever.
Okay. What is another big bugaboo of mine that happened this past week? Actually, you know what? We're going to sneak in a little pontification about what little we did find out about the Joe Biden press conference the other day, and I don't think it's really pertinent to the actual speech, right? We're going to talk about foreign policy a little bit right now, and particularly Vladimir Putin and Russia. So at one point during the speech, Joe Biden had made a slight remark about Ukraine and Russia's responsibility if there was to be some form of an incursion or invasion of Ukraine. And I like the fact that as far as the commentary, the broader commentary that is involved, the term "just the tip" has been trending in their worlds, and that's the way they've kind of associated the Vladimir Putin ability to invade Ukraine. They say if it's just the tip, we're really not going to push back that hard. We're going to have some sanctions, blah blah blah. But if he just pulls another Crimea, like he did during the Obama-Biden administration, it's really not going to be a big deal. But conversely, if Russia decides that it's their deal to invade Ukraine, which we all know Vladimir Putin's vision of the ultimate Russian empire does involve a Russian Ukraine. It's been that way for a long time. But then people get worried about the broader context of what happens if Russia invades. Then it gives the green light for China to invade Taiwan or something like that. And escalations may or may not ensue, which then leads to possible world war and so on and so forth. Ultimately, I don't know if anything like that would actually happen. I think Vladimir Putin, no matter what's going to happen, is eventually going to continue to try to take Ukraine and essentially confederate it into the Russian Federation, which colloquially could be called the Russian Empire at this point. But yeah, that was one of the problems that stemmed from that Biden address that weren't necessarily societal or this or that and the other thing. It was a piece of foreign policy. And foreign policy has been kind of quiet for the Biden administration since Afghanistan. Nothing really has been going on. He's been letting everybody do whatever they want. There's been no America's dick everywhere. And yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. By the time, I texted you the other day and I was like, bro, once Russia invades Ukraine, it's over at that point. Then Taiwan's gone and all this stuff. And you're like, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe they won't do it. Maybe they will. Who knows? But I do like the fact that the commentariat as a whole has adopted the term "just the tip" since then. Have you noticed that? It's too funny, and unfortunately, we have to laugh at it because it's fucking terrifying. But small victories when you can get them. Take a little bit of laughing while you got it.
Jesus.
It's fucking dark, bro. But yeah, that's the thing. Hopefully, we've been rather focused on domestic politics for the last few months, I think, because it's been pretty evident. But it's just important to remember that there are foreign policy things going on, and that I've been watching the bear for a long time, and the Chinese dragon.
Russia's your big one.
Russia's a big one because they're the major player. And God, the division that we are sowing these days is just, it is just the sweets for them, man. They love this stuff because if America is distracted with domestic bullshit that is inevitably tearing them apart, much less distracting them, it's also tearing them apart.
Yeah.
Cool. Then we can have the world back. I'm into it, says Vladimir Putin. Who also, I confessed to somebody the other day that I kind of wish Vladimir Putin was our president. Like, I wish somebody like him was our president. You know, I want a dude that I want to fight against having too much power all the time and who is open about it. I want a guy that's standing up there on the podium saying, I'm gonna lead us forward. I want this, I want that, because I want to be like, you're a bad person. Institutionalize this shit. Decentralize your power. Decentralize your power. But I also want that same president to jump on the back of a horse without a shirt and go galloping off into the fucking Arctic tundra. You know, I don't want 80-year-old, you know, tennis balls on the walker Joe Biden saying, I'm the leader of the free world. Not that he can even get through a sentence, but it's bad news bears.
The thing, one of my biggest issues with that is the whispering. 95% of schools are open.
Oh, no. You got to add more disdain to the whisper.
I cannot.
Donovan, if you weren't so fucking stupid about adopting this program, then maybe we can get our shit back together. It's that. That's the important part. It's the condescending, like, angry whisper.
You weren't so fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Then maybe you could understand what I was saying to you.
It'd be one thing if I was just trying to, you know, talk about random nonsense while I'm whispering. But it's not that. It's evil, deranged, angry shit.
It's horrible.
It's the words that get whispered into your ear by the serial killer who's about to fucking stab you to death while you're laying in bed at night. That's what it sounds like.
Oh God!
Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not.
No, you're right there. Yeah, no, it's not good.
So, you're back, which means we have some sports to talk about.
Sports. Okay, so I will start. Djokovic. What's his name? What's his first name?
I don't know, but he plays tennis.
Djokovic.
He was barred from.
What's that called when they kick you out?
Exiled?
No, not from.
I was like, that's a big deal.
Deported. He was deported from Australia for not being vaccinated. He was there to play in the Australian Open.
Yeah, there it is.
He was in quarantine. There was a lot of question about it. And then he ended up being fucking deported because he wasn't vaccinated, because Australia is a bunch of authoritarian fucking fascists.
Psychos. And you know what's really weird about this? Before we get deeper into sports, I just want to say one last closing thing. It's going to be really weird as we go now, because the UK is dropping all COVID mandates.
Yes.
Mask mandates. All the mandates. They're dropping them all. It's going to be weirder and weirder every day that Western nations have COVID mandates. Particularly a place like Australia that's gone so far that they're kicking fucking tennis players out. I mean, I would say at least...
Or New York, who won't let fucking Joe Rogan go there. You know, they changed their law for Madison Square Garden to like
exactly.
comedian specifically because he went there.
Because it used to be that New York City was as woke as fuck as you could be on COVID, right? Nobody could come in unless you were an entertainer. And then you could come in, you could play your venues, you do the whole thing. And then they were like, actually, not that fucking Joe Rogan guy. No comedians. You can't do that. But anyway, Australia, kicking this guy out. I think I'm going to be really interested to see what happens over the next, God, I hate to say few months, but like as more and more nations kind of look at what's going on and they're going, you're going to kick out the tennis player, but also China's going to go ahead and, disappear their tennis player. One's going to be more important than the other. I would hope. Because the fallout between the two tennis players, right? Because it's funny that they're both tennis players. But the Australian tennis player getting deported so he can't play compared to the... And then the league...
They just took her away.
The league fallout. Well, nobody gives a fuck that he was deported from Australia as far as the league is concerned, right? But China disappears a gal, and the league and everybody goes, no, we're done. We're done with you, fucking China. We're not playing this thing until we get our girl back. I don't like the fact that you could disappear somebody from COVID, but you can't disappear somebody for talking shit against the fucking
for being sexually assaulted. for
saying I got raped.
Like, what the fuck? She said someone sexually assaulted her, and they disappeared her. And then
in defense of the CCP, he was kind of a party member, all right?
right?
Like, we can't talk shit.
He was a party member. You're right.
if you can't laugh at the dark shit that's going on, you probably should learn to, because otherwise it's going to get real dark.
You're gonna have a bad time.
You're going to have a bad
You're gonna
time.
have a bad time.
Yeah. Okay.
We're struggling, but we're having a good time.
Amen.
So-
It's real bad, but thank God there's beer
Yeah.
and we could laugh at as the world burns.
So this week in sports, in NFL,
What else is
because
going
that's
on?
really what we talked
Well,
about.
we had
here.
let's just reiterate what we had. Breaking news during the show. Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
Are-
They defeated the Titans in the divisional round 19-16. I also just read the Titans had a league record 9 sacks against Joe Burrow. So that is fucking pretty incredible.
9
sacks. Which means that Joe Burrow got his shit pushed
Yeah,
in
beat,
earlier.
dude.
Yes.
He is sore as a motherfucker.
He is going to hate his life tomorrow. He's going to be happy, and there's a video of Joe Burrow. I'm 99% certain that he played for LSU. Now I'm sure that that's wrong, but then winning
Joe
the
Burrow?
national championship. Yep.
College.
And he walked into the locker room, and he's fucking smoking a cigar, and there's a slow-mo video of him walking in after a national championship win, and he's just like, yep. It's super old school. It's very cool. It's very fucking gangster, Joe Burrow.
God, I cannot. He looks like a goofy motherfucker.
I'm sure he is.
Joseph Lee Burrow. All right, I'm trying to find Cincinnati Bengals National Football League. Ohio State.
There it is. Ohio State.
Following a stint at Ohio State, Burrow played college football at LSU.
LSU.
There it is.
There it
where
is.
he won the Heisman Trophy and
Yes.
2020 college football playoff national championship
Yes.
as a senior.
Yes.
You could not have a better exit ramp
Yes.
to get into the NFL, bro.
So the national championship, after he won, he's walking off the field. Like I said, he's got the cigar. Fat puffers off of it. There's smoke blowing. He's walking. He's like, I just owned this entire place. I'm about to go and own the NFL. I'm about to take the fucking Bengals to the playoffs for the first time since fucking 91.
Yeah.
We're out
First
here.
time people are texting.
Yes.
Shout out Josh.
Bengals over Titans. So in what? Oh, it's actually going on right now. If we, how do I fucking
I don't know. It's your Android, bro.
Yeah.
I'm still learning.
reload it? Okay, and right now the 49ers are playing. They're losing 0-7 to the Packers. So they're playing today, and we'll figure out who goes there. And then tomorrow the Rams play the Buccaneers. I think that's going to be such a fucking good game.
Rams Bucks.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this question real quick.
Yes.
Did you expect the Bengals to come out like this?
No.
I mean, how has the season been looking? They
No.
wild carded the shit out of this wild card, essentially.
They have a wide receiver also, Jamar Chase, who's been absolutely insane this year. I think there was the last 3 games of the season, he had 500 yards and 3 touchdowns,
God.
and Joe Burrow had 800 yards passing. I mean, their team is going absolutely fucking nuclear right now.
One of those. So it's kind of like a team that was barely able to get by, and then once it really mattered,
Just
people really
clicked.
started
Yep.
fucking boom.
Figured it
They got a
out.
lot of new people on the team. Is this?
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow's a second-year quarterback. Jamar Chase is a rookie. Both of their other wide receivers are less than 4 years in the league. So
that being said,
Joe Mixon, running back.
is this something maybe we see a core group of individuals
Yes.
clicking? Is Cincinnati going to be a strong contender next
Yes.
year?
I think there's serious potential with that, yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That was a
Yeah,
real
no, I
good
don't think-
sportsy question for a non-sports guy.
Yeah. No, I don't think this is a fluke at all. So like I said, 49ers, Packers playing right now. Rams, Buccaneers tomorrow. That is going to be a fucking fantastic game. I cannot wait to watch that. And then Bills, Chiefs, 3 o'clock. I'm also very excited to watch that game. I really like the Bills. Really, really like the Bills.
Yeah, you fucking would, you Bill
think
shill.
the
So
Bills-
right now, San Francisco, Green Bay, 7-0. Just what quarter is it? Oh, it's first quarter.
Yep.
Game just
Right about
first
to
quarter is just getting
Just about to
over.
end, yep.
Yeah.
I think the Bills will probably beat the Chiefs tomorrow.
Who do you think's going to
Um,
win Packers 49ers?
I think Aaron Rodgers is going to win too.
Yeah. It's kind of
Um,
surprising 49ers have made it this way, but for a team that doesn't necessarily have anybody that's like a big name, more or less, they don't have an
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers anymore. They don't have a Colin Kaepernick anymore. I mean, do they have like a big dude?
Jimmy Garoppolo is a big name. He was the
Well, I
backup
mean,
to Tom Brady and then went there. Jimmy Garoppolo's pretty good.
But Garoppolo is
Um,
not. I guess he is a little bit.
They have
He's mid-tier name, I guess, right?
Nick Bosa is one of their defensive players. Brandon Ayuk is one of their wide receivers. They have a bunch of different
That
running
sounds
backs.
familiar.
I think one of their stories that appeals them to people is they had like 6 different running backs for the season because no one could stay healthy. People just stayed getting hurt.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like an underdog story of the 49ers. Not that they were ever like totally slept on, but especially comparing like thinking Arizona, Arizona's also in that same division. Seattle's last year was one of the best teams in that division. By far, they're the worst team in the division this year because the Rams, the 49ers, and the Cardinals are all in that same division. They all made the playoffs. The Cardinals were in the wild card weekend last weekend. So, yeah.
Sad. Well, good for them.
We have a really good division.
We have
a really good division.
And we're a really bad team and a really good
really
division.
Seahawks are really bad. Our division is really good.
Yeah.
So I think Tom Brady probably wins tomorrow. I think Tom Brady's going to do Tom Brady things. Playoff Lenny comes back tomorrow. Leonard Fournette's coming back. He's been out since week 16.
Lenny. Hey, Lenny was there.
Last year, he got the name Playoff Lenny because he had like 8 touchdowns or something like that over the playoffs. Yeah, he didn't do shit all year, came out in playoffs, same deal, went fucking nuclear.
It's funny how that can happen, right? Like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, hey, we made the playoffs.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and be a badass now.
Let's go.
Makes you wonder, why the fuck weren't you doing that all season?
Yeah.
Although, I think a lot of it's just a mentality. You can't be there until you're there type of deal. Yep. That's sports. So,
Playoff Lenny is here. We'll see what happens.
Amen.
Bills Chiefs tomorrow. I don't think Patty Mahomes can pull it off again. I think the Bills are going to take it. Bills defense is incredible.
Bills D has been good.
Josh Allen's really good
for multiple years
that
too.
Quarterback for the Bills, insane, absolutely insane. He's crazy fast. His arm is a fucking cannon, a cannon. I mean, he's throwing 70-yard balls in the air, bro. He has.
You don't do that on every other day that ends in Y? Shit.
It's insane. I've never seen anything like it. He is chucking that thing. Him and like Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford has a arm like a cannon.
I have to show you this. Don't say anything. Hot dog!
That's what you get.
Gotcha, bitch.
Gotcha. Yep. So that's it. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yep.
That's all that I got for sports this week.
Sports.
It's a good time.
It's a good time. I'm happy to be purchasing a championship fantasy football belt this year. For,
Dr. Casey?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I forgot to tell him about it. So
if Casey's a fan, he'll fucking know it's coming. I think I mentioned it. I don't know if I mentioned it on the cast. Maybe I did.
Yes, and you told me to tell him to listen to the end of the podcast. I told him about it.
It's coming. It's pretty solid. I mean, if I was a WWF player, WWE. That's what it is now. When I watched it, it was WWF, but WWE belt. I mean, it is extravagant. It is beautiful. Case bowls. You better wear it while you're fucking shoeing some horses. I want to see some pictures. All right.
I love it. With that,
peace out, Mr. Will Wallace.
I think that I will pimp the book club one more time.
Do it.
So again, this is the book that we'll be doing for February. So if you guys want to pick it up, go there.
Park.
It was $18 at Amazon or on Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
So
she's arguably more attractive in that picture than she is in real life.
Super cute.
Interesting.
So book club February. I will post the whole picture on Monday of all everything. I'm gonna find a good background for it. The picture I have right now has my pipe in it and shit.
Yeah, it does.
So,
I was gonna say,
I'm gonna find a better picture that's not gonna have my pipe in it, and we'll do that. And I'll be doing the weekly live streams. Date of the week to be determined. I will do wrap-ups once a month. At the end of the month, they'll come out on the first day of the month because they will also preview the book for that month. So it's going to be beautiful. Let me know.
Like the visual Lego blocks.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally works.
Let me know if anybody needs help getting the books. I hope you get them. That's it. You've been watching us here, YouTube, Salted Streets this whole time. Oh, I have a quote from John Adams to finish. That's what I have.
Yeah.
So you've been watching us, Salted Streets. I want to thank you guys. YouTube.com/Salted Streets. We have
social splash page. Go.
Yes. Instagram.com/Salted Streets. Facebook. Fuck Facebook.com/Salted Streets. Right? I'm gonna move this.
Yep.
I'm confusing myself.
And
Patreon.com, some of the streets.
by
Gotta go
next
there.
by next episode, you will have at least this episode on Rumble. I will say
There
that
you
right now. If
go.
you want to go there and support Rumble.com, then
There
you
you
can
go.
be on Rumble.com supporting Salt in the Streets at the same time.
So
And I'm not getting on Getter, by the way.
you're not gonna get on
No,
Getter?
but we'll save that for after dark. I'm just gonna say that right now. I'm not getting on Getter.
If you want to follow us on Patreon, you want to become a patron, you can go there, subscribe to all those different things. We have a Discord, obviously, also. SaltOnTheStreets.com for all this information. Swell Blended if you need a haircut. Location Skate Shop if you need a skateboard. Lexi Kyle on Twitch. Leggings and Aprons on Instagram. Like, comment on this video, subscribe, share it with your friends.
Notifications. I know you don't get them all the time, but hit the bell and it helps.
We have the clips going. So there is a clip every day of
Salty
the week,
Shorts.
Monday through Thursday.
Monday
the
through
Salty
Thursday.
Shorts. If you guys want to watch those, we also have the Beer Time with Offie that comes out on Fridays.
Except when I'm dying of not COVID.
Except when Colin is dying of not COVID.
That was a bad deal, bro. I gotta say that was
Yes.
not enjoyable. It was like having minor COVID plus strep throat. It was like all in the throat. It was so terrible. I couldn't talk. Oh, it was nasty for like fucking 3.5, 4 days. Not cool. Not cool. And then nowadays you gotta wait 5 days to take a fucking COVID test to see if you got Omicron, which does not make sense to me at all.
No.
But it's a whole deal, bro. It's wiping shit out. I didn't have people at my work for 2 weeks solid, which is, I mean, I was out for a week myself, but it's fucked up, bro. We got to get over this thing real quick. I want to start being like the UK all of a sudden.
Yeah.
When is it that the security state of UK became the bastion of freedom? How the mighty have fallen.
Oh my God. Okay.
Right, you got it?
Yes, this is a quote.
Let's do
Thank
it.
you. Help me.
Let's do
This is the quote that I have here is from John Adams, and this is in the very closing days of his life. This is in 1820.
Pause button. Closing days of his life. This is before he got murdered by somebody. So he didn't know
John
he was
Adams didn't get murdered by anybody.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm
Too
sorry.
much.
I've been
No.
fucking around.
No. Okay. So, closing days of his life, he's going on a walk. He's telling his child, John Quincy Adams, who also became president, he was the 6th president of the United States, the simple pleasures that he takes in his life. So he says, I have seen a queen of France with 18 millions of livres of diamonds upon her person, and I declare that all of the charms of her face and figure, added to all the glitter of her jewels, did not make an impression to me to that presented by every shrub.
But that ass was to die for. I mean, she was friends, right? It's fine.
Marie Antoinette!
Oh, damn. All right. So to close out the show, in honor of Marie Antoinette,
Marie Antoinette.
off with